嗯，不注意的，先供我们的了，
Rinpoche
可是
says he
明天
will
决
start
定的，
now. Rinpoche will start with the
萨
mandala
西必须
offering.
修习弥多章，学校领先的得经吧，上界新度密地表演，这连囊的新乐学本修。应当古日人呢，们这老干的大家米，上界决当初决就能了，想学巴多当年就是去大概出去几位所能去，这老边界的上界主本修上界决当初决就能了，想学巴多当年就是大概出去几位所能去，这老边界上界主我修上界决当初决就能。想学巴多当年就是去大概出去几位所能去，这老边界上界主本修。那个呢？嗯，啊，哦，来，苍茫的这是地理学音，大家好，听到我的声音吗？
听得到。
哦，
Rinpoche is saying hello to
今
everyone.
天我的那个，看来那个大的视频坏掉了，这边连了下的出了情绪，我们的，你
The
的
TV that
computer 清
is
楚体的下有，然后通
and
知，
before Rinpoche used the TV
在
screen, but
他的等的总顶研究地方是等的，嗯，在今年，卡桑俺所学，短大，的木推的学习，讲的做的，嗯，但俺说在区吧，是了的，那么三节吧，嗯，区吧定的差的个咯，但区吧印的讲了，区吧几个每年，区吧印比差年，就前边的爬呗爬区，但区吧印上蛮着我去读设计。这把印上我蛮着我去读些定这级，切取级有过都是，定这界面呢，那你区别印切外面都到底大是的，看到你不要嘛，全大要嘛。
Rinpoche said first of all hello to everyone, and also today the TV screen has broken. The TV is no longer working, so therefore he's using a laptop this time. Anyway, so yesterday Rinpoche gave some teachings. Today he will continue from what he talked about yesterday. And so most important is that, well, as practitioners, in particular as Buddhist practitioners, well, that's what we are. Rinpoche says we are Buddhist practitioners. There must be a difference between us as Buddhist practitioners and everyone else who's not a Buddhist practitioner. There should be a difference. So, for instance, taking the example of monks, like as monks should be different from lay people. They should be different in terms of their behavior. Now, similarly, here in the case of Dharma practitioners, it's important that there is a difference between a Dharma practitioner and someone who doesn't practice the Dharma. Otherwise, there's no need, there's no point in being a Dharma practitioner.
去季节，第哪年3节位去了，恰存不一呢？但3节位去的，但3节位去一个，恰上去，马那边够了，他卡要嘛是吧？等这几个了，但3节位去谁的？我主要的切度开始去这个嘞，然后开始去南米，年当也不差的切度，去你3节位去去因此了。양지 가서 수수기 라우디 바 뒤토의 체도 취치하래. 취디 디체의 체. 세상 취디 딘데지기 체도 자주 임바지 고래지신 디체를 핑그레 tin지진 디된다라 취지와이나 취지유의 상바이나 상바들이 디마도베 취 문에디 다다지 고차상지 说列几几年去我们 제버디 자유요 말.
Now, when it comes to being a religious person or being following the Dharma, practicing the Dharma, in particular practicing the Buddha Dharma, practicing Buddhism. Well, for those who don't understand the Dharma correctly, they may practice the Dharma for the wrong reasons, such as to make money, for instance. Somehow practicing the Dharma, if that helps them to make money, well, that's why they do it. Or they want to help their family, believing that the Dharma will help them somehow. By practicing the Dharma, they will help their family. If that's their motivation, again, that's the wrong motivation. Or to subdue their enemies. They may practice the Dharma to subdue their enemies. So these are all the wrong reasons for practicing the Dharma. Those who hold these wrong views, or who practice the Dharma with this purpose in mind, well, they may think that it will help them, their Dharma practice will help them to make money or to help their family and so forth. But this is all not in accordance with the actual goal of Buddhism.
Jumba yinare, kargudu shudiganlada, chujejigne, munegi, simba, chuyongdiganla, simba ma ne tuejidang, du dadu sen xiwo ne tuejidang, simba ma jiwa jijine, ma diwa xiwo yongde di pa 추지 낭추지 된다 상로 땅에 아니 신시워 수퇴지 다디 자제 자당바 수퇴지 다 딘데 수투베 걸어 강해지 테네 강해라 동네 제당면도 강해 티베 카도라 신슈 차상 차지지네 대대 미용와 로 단동베 부버당 다나 강해지 티베 있나야 개미도세 심부 바페부 지지네 대토야 딘데지 다 수도 외디 개침버리시다디 수토에 요래라 수토 외디 개침버리라 디 수토가 아니 시니다 오늘 자네기 취지에기 낭취지에기 주어디 수수라 당원의 핑기도 상바시다 미 가르시는 마시는 오늘 상단 핑기도 상시 딘딘 그래서
Now, with regard to our own motivation, our own reason for practicing the Dharma, well, we don't need an extremely extensive, we don't need a very vast kind of motivation or view or reason for doing so, but we should at the very least have the wish to subdue our mind in such a way that we find inner peace. So to find mental peace, that is one of the main goals for practicing the Dharma. That should be our purpose. The sense that the Dharma can really achieve such inner peace. And it's with this motivation then that we should practice. So if we are able to do that, if we can really practice in such a way, well, then when problems arise, we're able to effectively face these problems. We stay calm in the face of trouble. We stay calm and relaxed. And in that way are able to face all sorts of difficulties. So it's therefore possible to practice the Dharma with this in mind, with this purpose in mind, and also necessary to do so. And if we're able to do this, if we practice the Dharma to achieve inner peace, to achieve a calm mind, well, then we're able to get the real taste of the Dharma, get the actual taste of what Dharma practice is all about. And we generate the sense, or we come to the conclusion that Dharma really helps.
된다 수수 나라 내 지진에 다지 다 공부 가르쳐 버리는데 지집에 땡긴지 다 다른 가수들이 제공 작업으로 다 제공기 체제 제공인디간 다 제공 고마 주베 공디라 수수 나중 공자석이 디간라 된간라디 엔도시 롱루 구투스 세워스러버이나리 다 롱창라 퍼야디 지도스 체로 다 다른 가수 다 가상 체바로 다디 제당대 하고 오러 된제지 수수치 롱루 구투 세워다 롱창라 퍼베 카도디라 예년야งู유년마땅 로 된제連송체 아니 유년야งู예년마동 유년야งู예년마동 된제連송체 아니 니가년야งู 니가 동 디 렌송제 구탐바제 다 구탐바 제네 심바데즈 마치 가서 그래 당뇽 바슬라고 그래 로마틴 순데 겨와담 미기였는데 센시부 집에 하바 자원 신텐데랑 내가시 또 저슬려 차순 티기다 고버 초바리 가레스나 센르르 카톨라 산동디 동사라고 알아 센시부지 추베 카톨딜라 공제하기 낭된디야스 야부지 전투 말이 전부 이내 야부지 대기 말이 선상상 봐 쇼르로 미버 쇼르
Now, as Rinpoche said before, well, our goal is to practice the Dharma. Our goal is to meditate. And in particular here, our goal is to meditate, to apply or to practice analytical meditation. Now, in order to prepare ourselves for such a meditation, to prepare our mind, prepare our body to meditate, we should first sit down on a cushion and then calm the winds, calm the energy winds in our body. Remember, she spoke about this before. We start, for instance, by doing the 9-round breathing meditation, which means you breathe in 3 times. You breathe in through your right nostril and you breathe out through your left nostril. And then these are the first 3 rounds. And then for the next 3 rounds, again, 3 times you breathe in, but this time through your left nostril, and you breathe out through your right nostril. And after you've accomplished, after you've completed 3 times the next 3 rounds, then for the last 3 rounds, you breathe in through both nostrils, breathe in through both nostrils and breathe out through both nostrils. So with that, you're able to generate a neutral mind. So a mind that's neither virtuous nor non-virtuous, a neutral mind in the sense that it's very calm and relaxed. Because if we generate such a mind, then we're able to start to think, to start to analyze. On the other hand, if we're distracted, if our mind is very distracted because of overexcitement or very negative minds and so forth, well, not only are we not able to analyze, we're not able to think, we're not able to reflect, but we're also not able to keep focus, to focus our mind on a particular object, which is why it's important to, before we start our analytical meditation, to start with this kind of technique in order to prepare the mind in such a way to become calmer and focused.
가상 제에 나로라 지기 저지 티샤 가생에만 가서 단다 이번 주에 송제 우르 미비 공자당 주치 요래 쉬어래 주기 나로라 당부 송디 배진 가서 쉬어래 당부 송디 다 당부 송디 우르 미니 공자에 줘라 디 공자에 디코랑 우르 미니 공자당 메시지를 마도 단다 공 가리 제와 있는 뇌라 sen loma dingi rangshin tu chebe che tu long chang la phaya zhanga gu tang ba sa ya ti dang ngomba zwe ne song be long le mi be gong je ni bu ti ka ga re be de ka ga re chi de di u le mi be gong chang ma ji ba ma re me da yo re tin di ka sen zwe nang lo la u ndu su su bu cha sang le che ba din de sang ji dong ya ji nga zu ka sen ye ma de shi song ni dan da di da men da ni su le chi di ka sen ye ma gi nga su di yo ro 가사录音 제샤바 리코드 제샤바 디나 데바이나 고 하고 그래 단단 가서 농창을 퍼버디 공 가리 제바 있는 게 제바 있나 이다 자세 자단 뭐 제국으로 해서 마제는 짠이면 집어졌으나 이 강사 수수도 뛰내라야리로 강사 수수의 생디 생자보 주여바 있는 고 마제는 이거 그래 다 심바디도스 가서初步수는 예배 거 있나 제나 시라핀도 요래스
Now, yesterday, someone asked a question. So, well, to address this question, basically, they wondered whether the teachings Rinpoche previously gave on meditation, whether they are the same as the 7 as the 9-round breathing meditation. And Rinpoche's answer was, well, when Rinpoche gave teachings a few weeks ago on meditation, in particular on the different meditation techniques according to the Abhidharma Kosha, well, there were 6 different techniques Rinpoche mentioned, and of these 6, Rinpoche explained the first 3. Now, those are special meditations in terms of, well, breathing meditation, so different types of using the breath and meditating on the breath. Now, with regard to the 9-round breathing meditation or the 9-round technique, that's slightly different. That is just the purpose is to serve as a preparation for the actual meditation session. So as mentioned earlier, for the mind to become neutral, to calm the mind, and then to start a meditation. And then the techniques that are described in the Abhidharma Kosha, they are different. Now, anyway, for instance, well, they're different in the sense that, for instance, you visualize that your breath pervades your whole body as one technique that Rinpoche introduced. Anyway, if you're interested, you can always listen to the recordings of that explain these different meditations according to the Abhidharma Kosha. But anyway, with regard to the 9-round breathing technique, well, it's not absolutely necessary that you practice this. It just depends on the person. However, if you're distracted, if just before you start your meditation session, if you find that your mind is very distracted, then you may find it helpful to apply this technique. So it's just for those who find it helpful in the sense of preparing their mind for the meditation session.
Yes.
근데 되는시 다디네 가상 가서 이시에디 다디로 가서 다 센투 용거로 다 룰라 템베 둥에디 시고 말다 다 이루 넘버 2 바다 티네 센투야디 할레베 슈치모리로 다 디용디가 다 가서 간데 시고 그래스야 다 센투야라 배 다만다기 투니 센투야요로 가상 가서 시원하시 다 주진양 다 소바리 미수수수기 주진 장린 되버다 디나로라 주진 간야 롱지를 띠니 센투단 딜라 님부 딘당디 동네 제당디 시소나 다디 코파 카푸소나 지바지장로와
Now, as Rinpoche talked about yesterday, well, Rinpoche spoke about different kind of problems, like mental problems, not the ones that are a result of physical problems. So sometimes we experience mental problems that are a result of physical difficulties and so forth. But no, here Rinpoche says he's mainly talking about mental problems that are the result of many disruptive thoughts, many conceptual distracting thoughts that can be very powerful and can make us greatly unhappy. And there are many different reasons for a distracted mind, for such a mind that is distracted, that is experiencing problems. Anyway, so Rinpoche will introduce a few antidotes here, different antidotes to different states of mind, to different harmful states of mind. And once you've understood them, you can then apply them to different situations. I mean, it may not be for the same situation, but you may apply them or adjust them according to your personal situation.
투세 탕지라 다 튜모도 유대비 준 치슈디 가레스라 윤디강라 상류 나로라 로 다 저 셀레게와치야 도바 셀레게와치야 난다 셀레게와치야 다 다나신기 shum바 셀레게와 아니 용대야 다 디주 참 다 콘두 이나레 녀모비 루스로 다 녀모비 루다 가수 거래다 다 케다베 상루 디주 제디 간제지 가두지바 이나레 로 디다비 루 가두지 이나레 간제지 지바 이나레 수수라 펜투 지장매바 장的 마세베 녀바 빠드매바 지여바디 차창 지바레스
Now, of all the different problems, of all the kind of mental problems that disturb our mind, well, the worst problems are extreme states of mind. For instance, extreme expectations, exaggerated expectations, exaggerated suspicion, exaggerated fear, and exaggerated sadness or depression. So those are all harmful states of mind that really disturb our mind, that really distract our mind. So there are these afflictive types of minds, extreme thoughts. So they're extreme mental states. And whenever they rise in our mental continuum, whenever these extreme mental states arise in our continuum, well, not only do they not benefit us, they also harm us. So these different states, when they arise, they actually harm us.
디 나로라 카레 배천샤는 저기도 다 빼는 가서 nganra 가서 다 nganra 이나레 다 가르를 비샤고 그래 에 빼나 슝바 로 다가 용금도 상상의 슝바 다버지를 차춘바 이나레 다 가르를 배천나 저기도 다 넘버 수나로 지수나 저기도 간들 빼는 디순의 진이나 수수기 심벌 추대죠로 kuyo nga chi lagidu, kuyo nga la chi shigidu, kuyo ki ani nga la chi nyoba che zhe chigidu segi tindegi nangdu ki tu nian simba chu de jo ro. Da di la cha chunba ina rida, nangdu tindegi sim chu de ji la cha chunba ina, da kanzhes, tindegi lebe kato la kanzhes nga su dongling che gu risi, dongling chen, che tang kare kare yo ra shuwa ina.
Now there are different examples as to these harmful states of mind. So let's think of an example. For instance, fear, or even better than that, depression. So feeling depressed, feeling really low, feeling really discouraged. So anyway, whichever example you want to choose, whichever state of mind you want to choose as an example. So let's say someone says something. So there's a sense, oh, this person said such and such to me, or they did such and such to me. They harmed me. So in those situations when we're upset due to the reasons just given, well, now the question is, how can we face such a situation? How can we face the problem that arises when someone insults us, when someone hurts us, and so forth?
이러 배는 가서도 데데비 카도라 다 디르다 니부 땡당 림바 카 민자다 용추도 디낭로를 디진지 용한테 제니 림바지 용한테 제니 쉬어이나 배는 가랑수도 데비 다 레가 집에 거라 다나 신기 기초 나로를 다 미더년도 시비 딘데기 거라 미신다 딘데기 수수 치를 요긴기 미딘데기 배는 총류 지도가 있나 디낭로를 미지기 수수라 军军协为呢，军军协为了今年叔叔什么马基为协为查原因用不多。
So let's say we're just staying somewhere, and now a situation arises. So, well, let's talk about what antidote can we apply. So the antidotes, there are different types of antidotes. There's a certain sequence to them. So let's take one particular example of a situation when we can effectively apply the antidotes, this sequence or kind of certain steps when it comes to the antidote. Let's say we're working. We're working with other people, and we have to attend a conference. And at the time of the conference, someone criticizes us. Someone expresses their criticism directed at us, and we feel unhappy.
다 딘데 카도라 다 쿠가라 미망비지 랑하라 지두자 시부지라 숨 상 다디 라벌라 딘네 다베 미망비지라 수수된 구자의 명의 순리시 수송 상시 딘데기 나와지 샤르시니 또야 라의 명의 순리시 수송 상상 순리시 딘데기 수수라 나와지 샤르 딘데기 초스라 우르베 상루시 레네 아니 스모 마지부 샤용 거로
Now, in such a situation, well, it's first of all, you feel embarrassed, you feel insulted. in front of so many people, there's the sense like in front of all these people, this person criticized me, this person insulted me. And there's this deep sense of embarrassment that you feel like I cannot get up. There's nothing I can do really. And so reflecting on this, reflecting on the insult, on the criticism, then a certain feeling arises, of a negative feeling, basically, that you feel miserable.
kugi sheba digi susu ro kugi junje ji cheba digi susu bed be kaso warda jizo nanglo la ya lan me ngi su ji su song sang ji jizo nanglo la zan ya lan me tung su ji ro da jizo ne ya lan ne ji kar sa gur ji ji niwa tyen ba su ji dinde ji je toya me gi ji su song sang be lu dinde ji le ba ro lu di le ba 이 진짜네 심마지비 차인 거로 다 심마지비 차야디 미파슈디기 전주제 디지브레스나 말에 미파슈디기 전주 제발라 땡네 수수 생기 땡도 수미 이제 이낭도 슬라바인나 신지로기 넘버 2 버치래요다 신지로기 넘버 2 버디 갈래요스나 쿠기 전주 제발라 땡네 다 나다 베드 베치존은 니버맹이지 수송 삼바트 다디 근데기 신지로기 루지레고 신지로기 루디기 수수로 마지버 수요다 마지버 온수 수긴디 수레스나 파쇼기 전주기다 나디 전주제 이 말에 디 전주집이 자어디 말에 가르쳐야 수수난도 그 전주 제버디 진지리 진춘중지리 딜을 때네 수수 생기 나로라 다 있는 아베드베 뉴버맹이지 수송 삼베 모에네스도 미팅베 나도 디기다 심마지버 수용 거리스.
So if we think about this, for instance, well, in the situation which you just described, so we are being criticized by someone, and there's a sense, now there's nothing I can do. I've just been embarrassed, I've been insulted, there's really nothing I can do. I cannot show my potential any longer. So in society, there's this deep sense of embarrassment and a sense that you've been stopped from doing something, which leads to unhappiness. But actually, it's not the criticism that causes our mental problems, our unhappiness. It's rather that in dependence on this criticism, we generate what is called an extreme attitude, an extreme mind, a wrong consciousness that thinks there's nothing I can do now. I'm not able to actually do anything now because I've been criticized. And because of that thought, that wrong mind, that wrong consciousness, unhappiness arises. So the act of criticism is only a minor condition. It's our thoughts, it's our conceptions, our different mental thoughts that give rise to this sense like, now I can't do anything. Now this person has taken away all my ability to do anything. That thought is responsible for our unhappiness. It's not the criticism itself. That is just a minor condition.
아, 계시리다. kuichunje cheba inare susu sengi nanglo la ro. kuichunje chene che kemindu chunje cheba digi ngalani ke nyu mare sambachi ro. ngarangi lega la ke nyu mare. ngarangi rangshengi nyuba chiyuba dila ke nyu mare. da maungba la ngarang la chi kuka yongya dizu te dila ke nyu mare kuka mutune mambu tsuya yore. 상상 딘데기 루주에는 전주체는 개뉴미도 심밖에 투무도.
If, on the other hand, having been criticized, having been insulted in such a way, if instead we think, well, these words, this criticism does not actually harm me. It doesn't harm my work. It doesn't harm my natural ability, my natural capacity. It doesn't harm that. And it doesn't harm me in terms of my future opportunities. So in that case, if despite the criticism, we adopt this attitude that it actually doesn't harm me at all, then it doesn't create a problem.
수수생기 나로라 외내 최다 미팀비 신다기 준주 지혜바 딜러 띠네 수수생기 나로라 외외다 미창배 넘버 2바 수미 이지 넘버 2바 지지 이왕기 용디거리 다 띠인딩 가서 가봐 동네 제고랬으나 강구 지혜당 님부딘서디 가버렸으나 준주 지혜바라 띠네 수수생기 나로라 준주 디기 나베 뉴어 맹이 순듯이 지수 나로라 人他没不去随从上边，上路进多，但技术难路了，俺了人他没不随从上边，上路低了你不定过的。
Therefore, in reality, our unhappiness arises from our own attitude, arises from our own mind. Now, being criticized, having been criticized, then that gives rise to unrealistic thoughts, to all sorts of wrong ideas, to an extreme attitude, or an extreme type of mind that does not accord with reality. Now, the question is, where do we apply the antidote? Well, what we have to apply the antidote to is we don't apply the antidote to the criticism, but rather to this unrealistic idea that arises in our mind, this thought that now there's nothing I can do, I've been embarrassed, my value has been destroyed, my
냐마가 다 출연 주신배 거라다 출연 주신배 거라 다 기시 동야를 루치즈니즈마도 요 말에 다 기시 메다스 그래 기시 무시 말에 기시 메다 안센데세 기시 동야기 동저지 긴긴 센데지 왔단 센데 타마티 디제들이 다 디카도라 당제 친구들인데 대두강라 다 당제 친구들인데 대비 카도 레마부 자워다 레마부 자워 다 레마부 자고 디강라 니마지다 가순 진짜집어 참아 요르다 라마 뮤즈 강디키로 당제 대디 아니 신다 린장이 민도 야마지 린장이 나가나 파워다 신다 린 자kin 자 투킨의 예지리 이나단 냥구지도 사디강라다 나가나 요šan다 그 가시 그 랭가르젠다 그 레가레스에스는 레스는 지차지지네 아니 린장 나를 봐봐라 다 문에 맞디다 또 중송 야 다지를 중수 다 마스 레지진에 단다 파신 TV 로라 상제기 구시디 균양의 조거리에 린진의 조거리에 딘노드 지어래 배나 계지 당불라 이지 주고 또 넘버 탄제 진비 이시 계지 당부디 줄지디 상제로 거라 다 당부제디가 롱근 원으로 상제스 거라 다 롱근 원으로 상제디가 롱구의 주근이디 균양의 조거리에 롱구면을 주네 롱구를 떼네 아니 롱구 주고만 못 주버려서 디카도 드리다 진짜 지워다 뉴트 지워지워 나 디카도 레디가는 예 디카도 비자 야부 로메 버지지 나 산이 야부래 총마서 다디 러도메도 다 파지러 잘줄 디네 뭔가베 깔래 같이 누구나 되는 것도 마시루슈를 차오신 부여다 문화 되는 것도 다디 문화디 실로니 차오스니 문화디 말에 나로니 차오스니 문화 되는들이 다디 둘레야부 자마토 인디간라 추라 마트니 용디간라 다 다리다 샹지 쉬송 상상스르지 가서 올때 세나라다 지 냐마부스르스네 다 정마송 상상 베 심바 나로라 마지베 다 마지베 디디 용디기도 아니 진짜지버 루브츠기 다 다리다 아니 샹지 가서 시라샤스 게제도시 kuzuta kariyor kuzo naos kemido tunachimus kemido ina susu sengi nangdogi shibuchi chongmangsong sang sunuji da jimanebe lenjayagi kuga jie meba chabe sunuji nangdo sengi di cho gadore shinjilogi nangdo di shuchimu ledu gangla maungba da kuga yabu yoba da dizu jie tongdo gomedo kato di ji chongmangsong sang manjongwa di be shuchimu cho yongji di ji yongbudo da cho tendeji da di ani simba majiwa di sugudo di
Now, to give you an example, a situation when Rinpoche had an experience that is similar to this. Well, when Rinpoche was still in South India at his monastery, and he was in the process of getting the Geshe degree. So that was in the last year. You only had 1 or 2 years left. So at that time, you're already called Geshe. So the name is already given, the name is already labeled Geshe, but you're not actually a Geshe yet. So it was the last year, basically, the last 2 years. Anyway, so at that time, Rinpoche went to the debate, and a group debate took place. Now, the group debate in such a way, there were a lot of people, his classmates were present, there were people debating, and so Rinpoche sat down at the time, other people were debating, and Rinpoche being a Druko or Lama, he said at the very beginning, or he said at the head of the debate, where also the people sat who were answering, and actually someone else was answering. Rinpoche just sat there to witness the debate, but at some point the person answering stopped answering. Rinpoche answered 1 or 2 times, and basically they all focused on Rinpoche and started debating with him. And in the beginning, when they all kind of directed their questions, their challenges at Rinpoche, it went quite well. And then they started debating a particular topic on Parchin, on the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. This is about the 4 bodies of a Buddha, the 4 kayas of a Buddha. Now, the debate, it's a very popular debate where you debate whether the 4 kayas of a Buddha are achieved simultaneously or not. So in other words, when someone attains enlightenment, when a being attains enlightenment, well, do they attain all 4 kayas at the same time? And the debate is in particular with regard to the Sambhoga kaya and the Nimmana kaya. So in other words, the Sambhoga kaya, or the enjoyment body, well, it is said that a person becomes enlightened in the Sambhoga kaya. So their actual entity is that of a Sambhoga kaya. And then they manifest all these Nimmana kayas, or emanation bodies. Now the question is, do they attain their enjoyment body and the emanation bodies at the same time or not? Or does a person attain the Sambhoga kaya first, attains enlightenment, and only then sends out all these emanations? Anyway, Rinpoche said, well, he hadn't really prepared well. He wasn't really sure how to answer properly and couldn't answer. And so he felt really stressed out. So of course it's hot in South India, but Rinpoche started sweating, not because of the heat, the external heat, but it was inside. He was so stressed out by the fact he couldn't answer properly. And he felt embarrassed. He felt like that was a disgrace. I embarrassed myself and felt unhappy. And so when he discussed it with his classmates, kind of telling them, well, I didn't answer well, this really went wrong, they were like, whatever, it doesn't matter, it's not a big deal. So for Rinpoche, in Rinpoche's case, like for him, it felt a really big thing. He felt really embarrassed and felt it had gone completely wrong. Whereas for other people, it was just a normal thing. It was not a problem at all. And in terms of Rinpoche at that time, he felt, well, I've done this so wrong. I will never get the chance to answer properly. So this kind of unrealistic thought in that moment, this wrong view he had.
象征学的恰起穷不的连也不接个恰提出这的样但是现在也扩多很多这最明显难度的休息这的讲了连也不接被恰提出这的也不接你连也不接没为因的连也不马中不的这当连也不马中那样过连的了他说日浪跟主当月吧即接不接当的他说人主当地出没为呢，连接为看到连哪那样，现在哪儿的哪儿的地呢，哪那样哪当没着啊，哪儿出没着哟，哪当没着哟的，开始了呢，即日朗月吧，即日边主业当上路东亚的国人地看说的马出被土呢，哪当顶着哟了，日边追马拉被土呢，顶着也不准备下地做这的马东不去，你给快我嘛的，连接马土地的。 但我南军被连长么解决上上给南军给俺姐连长么解决的嘛的，但南军被连的旅交土的上上给对军都但明白俺姐是了我的，地的很只要免住的，忙不记得只要约事的，南军给上东当来，但民军了的俺告诉的，也不晓得全关系， 수수기 야베 난주 샤다지 땡구 상베 상로 뒤에버 디수기 다 전지도 신出来了 간이스나 민들의 가두이나 야베 차장장 된 가서 그래 된 통는다 된 고거 야부문에 야부디 샤다 있는 야부 된 고거 이나 민들의 수수문에 가리인 것들이 장신버 주어다 전기 차요래 연電기 차요래 수수주의 녀모 요래 양 시력이 차요래 치종라 마두비 시력이 차요래 아니 장비 차요래 이거 장신바랑 그랬다 장신버디만 되잖아 미시비 차요래 시비 이 개면도 미시브 투딩을 미시바랑 그래 수지 다 미상마 다랑지 그래서 이상로 코마도시 그래서 안 강에 되는 치도 스타디 고 배선 소리지
음.
So actually, it was okay. It wasn't the end of the world, but Rinpoche didn't feel it was okay the way it turned out, and he felt unhappy. But actually, well, in terms of answering, I mean, Rinpoche says it's because of this wrong view in that moment, this kind of extreme mental state, this extreme attitude or wrong consciousness, he wasn't able to see reality. That, for instance, some of his answers were correct and they were good, but he wasn't able to reflect on them. And also, when it came to the answers, the mistakes he made, well, there were wrong answers, yes, but they were not totally absurd. I mean, they were still within the context of logic, in that of course, you can be a wrong answer can have many different types. It can be totally off, like it doesn't make any sense, or it can be an answer that is still within the frame of logic, within the kind of process of logically reasoning. So in that sense, there are different types. The way it seems to us, maybe in certain situation, although the answer is not in accordance with the scriptures, for instance, it may be wrong, but it's not totally off. So in that way, still, because of Rinpoche's kind of feeling of embarrassment, or his sense of embarrassment, it felt it was totally wrong. And actually, there was a sense of pride. I mean, usually Rinpoche says he didn't always answer correctly, but there was like this ambition or this kind of pride or sense like I should get it right. I should always give a right answer. And at times it did work out in that way. So, but the thing is, Rinpoche says it's impossible to always be good. Of course, if someone is always good, always gives the right answers, they should do that. They should, of course, do that. But we're just normal people. So our nature is such that we have faults and we have good qualities. We have wisdom, but we also have afflictions. So therefore, there's certain things we know and certain things we don't know. So why shouldn't we show both? We should be honest about both our faults and our good qualities. We should be aware of our limitations, but also be aware of what we can do. So in that way, to be realistic as to what we can do and not expect too much of ourselves, to not expect to be doing, to do everything always right, to always answer in the correct way and so forth. So in that way, it is important to have that realistic attitude and not to be driven by our wrong views.
다 디인디 강라 강다 심바마지 수에디 수수생기 낭로라 취미 이지기 넘버 2바 무에네 수다 미튠베 낭두지 지지 디지 유여버디 세버레샤스 당아서 딜은 니부터 구디 강라 다 다기 가서라디 미신다기 미망비치라 맘 가서르 맘베치 전주치와 디기 세낭로 다이나 쿠잉아 베 지조 낭로라 시라기 베 미두자지로 수송 삼바 ngami nyume rinpa mengi chila da shisung samba o di nangdu tires 다 가서 제버제도 낭도디라 크기 전제了되네 기초는 뉴메도 수송 상배 낭도디 까고 다定位呢다 미팅버리스 크기 전제了되네 뉴메 수송 상배 낭도디 간데스 까고스는 다 상당히 다 크기 전제了되네 수수 기초 낭로라 민뉴가 명예 신당 명예지라 오늘의 수요를 배 수두그래 배 저어디 땅고로 근데 수두그래 배 수요를 배
So anyway, with regard to the state of feeling unhappy in the situation Rinpoche just described, or in the situation of the conference, for instance, well, it's basically our exaggerated view, our exaggerated attitude that is responsible for feeling unhappy. So not being in accordance with reality, our views does not accord with reality, and that is very clear. Now, if you want to apply the antidotes, or want to apply an antidote to the situation, well, being criticized, for instance, someone criticizing us in front of other people, there's a sense of, I've been humiliated. This person has destroyed my standing, has my reputation is destroyed, and so forth. Well, those are just destructive thoughts. These are unrealistic thoughts. And it's important that we stop these thoughts because they're not realistic. They're not in accordance with reality. Now, how can we stop these thoughts? How can we stop these thoughts that do not accord with reality? What can we do in this situation? Well, first, think about it.
개시 미신다기 준주기 수수 린타메바 수투야 개시 미신다기 수수의 떼라 땅바인 떼라 디기 수수 린타 여바 수투에 딘데지나 미 수수의 린타 여다 메세다 미 수수의 뉴바 여다 메세디 뉴바 여메디 미신다기 떼라 땅 준주지시니 떼라 땅나 뉴바 여바수 준주지나 뉴바 메오수스 딘데 임바이나 아니 다 하장 태도 다 뒤로 미신다지 들어다니 수수 뉴버진다 연den진다 간데스 차고 그래 수수 뉴버진다 연den진다 진당 유버진디 수수구거스는 수수수구 그래
So therefore, in terms of the sense that my value has been lost, I no longer have the same ability and so forth. This kind of sense that I've lost all my abilities, well, that's not realistic. And we should reflect on a situation such as being criticized. Well, being criticized, does that criticism really make me worse? And on the other hand, being praised, does it help my capacity, my abilities if I'm being praised? I mean, does it really, like, if someone criticizes me, do I really become a worse person versus if someone praises me, I become a better person? Well, no, actually, that's extreme. That's totally unrealistic. That's an extreme kind of view, in the sense that it's only me, I myself, I can improve myself, my own ability, my capacity, all that comes from myself. So whether I have good abilities, I'm able to do certain things, I have faults or not, it all comes from my own mind. It's all in my own hand.
뉴에 차바이나 디 겨워 차서 군이 고란 겨워로 예문이 전주 지역으로 예문이 들어단 거다 디고 괜찮으시죠 들어당일다 뉴번도 도스라 전주 진행다 뉴번민도 민도스라 디 하장긴 겨워로
So if that were really the case, well, imagine someone to your right side criticizes you and someone to your left side praises you. So are you getting better and worse at the same time? I mean, that would be contradictory. So on one hand, someone destroys your ability. On the other hand, they generate your ability. They create new abilities. That's absurd. That doesn't happen. So even if you get praised or criticized, it doesn't make you a better or worse person.
다양 미망비지라 크기 전제 제벌을 띠는 아주 생긴 나로라 다이는가 지조 나로라베 가서 그런 냥마부 시우지 수송 상버디 외내수도 매상바 가르스는 디간라 我那时的没啥么可是呢，我那时的看着差的是呢，俺说记住难落了，米了，他说的，都是大用的讲了，米忙不及了，地要的，米现在给些写不脏了，浪上恰马下呀去，地要了，写了个牛不地要了，米忙不及了要的，但米卡起了没办法写的。米卡吉了没把这的开始呢，但是马上记着，对了当一起图呢，哦也不认识，就经一起都哦度假营不认识，可能了让路顶不给我嘛，但是爬树的上面出去的，个哈巴卡巴家呢，看着的，个地顶不明的，但没顶不愿意这上了，叔叔上了当的他经一个没地出这的，当中是没忙不记了，的结不的叔叔娘毛不睡了怕。娘毛不睡怕下，可以卷着结不了点呢，没现在个叔叔了多拿起来就我的，没现在个可以卷着结的个没现在个叔叔多拿起了，多拿起被看到哦，可以卷着结不拿心情那没那，多不谁多拿起来，没叔叔了多拿忙不就也不睡着的，那多拿忙不就也不随便个了，个就叔叔给我那个叔叔了，就原点月吧，当叔叔了我那个全当是那里，但叔叔了上路女不就为那个你把短途不赢了，你这些交集别让他们写图呢。哦的，可以打给卷卷解释的，卷卷解释个没得来了，我就站在这面都是写呢。哎你，谷歌掐算，这叔叔谷歌掐算的，叔叔个女不怕短呀的，叔叔没也不同样的，没忙不起，叔叔还过去写个谷歌也不去掐算，哎的。
So we may also have the sense in the situation while being criticized among many people that this destroys my reputation. But in reality, if we think about it really well, of course, there are people who have wisdom, who have understanding, who understand the situation, and see things for what they are, understand who we are. So there are many people who have the ability to understand what is going on. Of course, there are also others who lack that kind of wisdom, that kind of discerning ability. So they may they're they're like carried by the wind, you know, like someone criticizes another person and they think, oh, this other person must be terrible, must be bad because they've just been criticized, or another person praises the other person and then they believe right away, oh, that must be a good person. So they change their opinion based on the praise and the criticism of other people. Well, they're not very stable, and they lack that kind of discerning ability. But anyway, when getting criticized, what happens if you're being criticized in front of a lot of people? Well, first of all, people pay attention to you. You're the subject of the criticism, and people look at you and now start thinking about you. And now, if you have certain qualities and you're effective in a particular way, it gives you the opportunity to explain yourself, to react in an appropriate way, so that other people understand, oh, wow, this person cannot be easily criticized. You can't easily get away with saying all sorts of things about them. So it gives you an opportunity instead to, well, explain why you did what you did and show in that way how effective you are. Show to others, show your qualities. And so first people pay attention to you, as said earlier, and on top of that, then you're able to show what you've actually accomplished or what you can do. And it gives you this opportunity by way of speaking up and saying, well, that this criticism is not in accordance with reality, and to explain yourself as just explained, as just said.
랑 슈 띵부 맹이 가소래 지장 이 지선 장경기 디수제디 개요 말에 산나니 야부 시리 구이 디차로라 군소 제디 저주 지에너 마지에너 시라시라 뉴어요 말다 디체바 개요 말에 디차 송소 다 디장의 마세병 슈신다지 상당디 간라 뭐에 내줄라 그게 전주 제버티기 수수기 누바 오늘 매버 수요래 수도그래 수수 세나로 연된지에는 디 매버 수요래 수요마 수수 수부기 최대 야부지에는 디 그게 전주 제버장지 수부기 또디 또슈디 최대디 수부 가서 그래 디부여버 디 매버 수요래 수요마 다나신기 그게 전주 제버디 수수기 단대 랑생린지기 누바 요르다 미수수수라 진배 뉴바다 시러기 뉴바다 다 랑생기 뉴바 다 벤능스라 그래 랑생기 뉴바 어디 매바 수그랬으나 디에스 두고 말이 다그 전주 디 수수기 가르 매바 수거다 생기 연된 매바 수거를 배 류기 딘자 매바 수거를 배 엔다나생기 랑생기 뉴바디 매바 수거를 배 아니 가르 수부 매바 수거를 배 셈바 매바 수거를 가르 매바 수거다
Now, it's important to also be aware that those are just words. In the end, they're just words. The words are not that important. They don't really change. I mean, the words of a person don't really change who I am. Another way to think about it is, for instance, well, to reflect on whether this person, through their insulting words or through their criticism, can they actually destroy my good qualities? Well, they actually can't do that. Any kind of positive qualities that I possess, they cannot be destroyed by these words. Or if I have if I physically am very strong and healthy, well, whatever this person says, they're not able to destroy my physical abilities, my physical strength and health. Furthermore, I have certain qualities such as good memory or wisdom. So just qualities that I naturally possess, qualities that I've been born with. And again, can this person destroy these qualities that I've been born with? Well, no, they can't do that. So if we really think about this, the criticism of this person, the criticism like having been criticized by someone, it cannot destroy my mind or my body. The words themselves don't do anything to me. So they cannot in any way make it better or make it worse. So my natural abilities and other abilities remain the same.
같이 제대로이나 디메버 수그룹에서나 대수고 말. 다음에 그게 준지 제버디 수수기베 비제 로야당 러종제로 단대 단동양 연대예제 동야기 랑가디 자원이 메버 수그룹에서나 대 메버 수고 말. 마음발라 수수베 레가당 러종제야당 다나신기 주부제로 수바다 딘제기 국어 그거 참아 구제바 나신 차로 제차고 말해. 단도 이하름줘야지 용식을. 이장의 마세베 단도 크기 전지 제벌을 때네 수수의 진수지 당고 다지 당고로. 크기 전지 제디가 알레 전지 제 디수제디 간데 렌도. 이 전지 제디 크 가서 군노르 태지지. 군노르 태바다. 야메나 미신다지기 계제 주마든지 장발을 때네 용어 렌도에서 이 세시제 국어지향 창조도 세상 대중의 내수라 수수기 원액이 수수의 유예배 연된지 수수의 유예배 원액이 유예배 다 장비기 차 지장 그게 매버수 전제디 매버수도 말했어.
Now again, it's important to understand that our usual ability to work, for instance, well, that doesn't get affected. Or our ability to study, our ability to read books, to study, to increase our knowledge. Again, just through the criticism of a person, well, that ability doesn't decrease. And also when it comes to the future, being with people, having friends, having companions, and so forth. Well, whether someone criticizes us or not, that won't get destroyed through these words. So it's not like this person closes all the doors to any kind of opportunities for us. And in fact, based on what they've said, it may help us to improve things. It may help us to improve certain situations, make improvements. And we should also think about why they criticize us, to reflect on what happened. What are they saying? Is it true or not? Are they just mistaken? Did they just misunderstand? Or did they hear some kind of rumor that's not realistic, some unrealistic kind of rumor? Did they just believe what other people told them? So basically, the criticism gives us the opportunity to reflect on what's going on, what is realistic and what is not. In that way, we can actually use it in a positive way. And it's impossible that our good qualities are destroyed by these words alone.
디 제도 강라 다 쿠이 전제 제발로 띠네 수수 뉴버 매버니 뉴버 강유버 띠니 매버 수토야미도 아니 다나신기 가서 그래 국가 망부 수수라 용주 유버 디주 상마 매버니 수토야미도 디자인의 마시비 도쇼기 뉴버 트행기로 쿠전제 제발로 띠니 수수라 도쇼라 기변 용약이 국가지야 그 용시 버지래 되샤 저 띠니 지금 가르치는 쿠전제 전주지지 슐로네 치미니버 지제 난센토네 신도 제디간라 디 강에 니리도 강에 니 전주지지 용거로 전주 딜러디네 수수 심바마지버 제버이나 그기 전주지에 디고 제부 뉴버 템베스는 샤디 그래서 그 전제 가르쳐 그냥 전제 가르치나 개구지 다 수수 전제디 제벌라디네 디네 송디 수수 미제마토야 미마 수수 미차디어로 미마임바니 찬주고 말해 미마임바로 미마임바 진리ren 두고 말해 다나신기 쿠기 전제 제벌라디네 수수기 오네기 수수기 뉴바디 간데스 두고 그러스나 수수 갈래자니 베나 로종디 간데 제고스나 지상 로종 망부지에요로 레버디 베 야제 동티치 아니 레가로 뉴버 트렌디로 수수 레가지 전주 보다 받다지 다나신기 베나다 녜단다 세나 카도 티팅도 남바지를 차서나 공제해서는 뒤 쪼우로다 공제해디 쪼우는 쪼우지라 공제 구근전 투마 주제니 시자시를 가디고 공나 공주래 그 전주 제벌라디네 주제니 시자시 매번이 작은 말 주제니 시자시랑 하자 요르마도 주제니 시자시 주제지 마도 매번 작은 말이 저디 이러 시선 수수 가르다 뉴 괜히 데메리다 된다 데메 자오 가리 진이 주어 있는 디 제예요 버지 제예요 버지 단도 디 제를 꾸마 차기도 그 전주디 꾸마 제 그래서 딩이 강라 다 심바 추고에占里面 하다 로 마세베 마음발라 비차디도 가서 그래 수수기 시작이 제고액이 로종당 레가당 아니 파미기 셔도 쉬야당 다나신기 수수기 뒤준도다 인루 추팅기 저 가르치고 디수제디 다다 제바이나 디 제지진엔 제부 친구치 트렌디가라 전주지 경기 미디라 렌치슈디 칸에 렌자야디 말해 라랭 오면 투니 수수기 뉴버 제부디 트렌소나 전주지기디라 렌 낭슈디 렌 차슈디 어디 차디고다
So therefore, criticism does not destroy our ability. It does not destroy our opportunities. And maybe it actually gives rise to new opportunities. Therefore, it's so important to understand that our reactions are the problem, not the criticism itself. In fact, if we are criticized and then have these negative kind of thoughts and start worrying, etc., well, we create two problems. There are two problems now, the external criticism, and we add another problem to it, which is our unrealistic reaction to it. Instead, we should take it as an opportunity, use it in a positive way, and be calm, remain calm. We don't become non-human suddenly. It's not like we're no longer human beings because we've been criticized or lose our abilities. I mean, if we've studied, for instance, the ability to study, the ability to gain knowledge and so forth, well, we worked hard for that. No one can destroy this, really. We used our brain, we worked in a diligent kind of way, and so we were able to accomplish certain our studies. We were able to gain new knowledge and so forth. Or if you think of a person who practices the Dharma, so like we ourselves, we practice the Dharma, we practice meditation. So criticism cannot stop us from meditating. we can still continue to do what we've been doing before. We can still continue to meditate. If we want, we can meditate for 24 hours. A person's words, a person's criticism cannot stop us, cannot stop our ability to meditate. So therefore, it's important that we act in a way, think and act in a way that is in accordance with reality. And then there's nothing we can do if we've done everything we could, if we've done it if we acted in a realistic way and we've worked hard, then no one can take that away from us. No one can, with their criticism, can actually take that away from us. And so it's basically important that we act in the correct way when it comes to our own parents, when it comes to society, and so forth. So to act in a way that we have no regrets, that what we've done is appropriate, it's realistic, and so forth. And then it doesn't matter whatever this other person says or doesn't say. In the end, it doesn't affect us. So that in that way, we can remain calm and do not create more problems for ourselves, but know what we've done was okay, was all right, and we've done whatever we can do. We've acted in a way that is realistic.
단동 다 상는 망부 단요. 다 변나 미 전주제 레베이나 전주제 라파 도난 친구 제베이나 원전디 도난 가서 시부지 도난 셀레 겨제 줘로 시부지 디 도난 제디 뒤뒤에 출라래 뒤뒤에 출라래 가레스로 디간라 미 파슈디 전주제 디간라 도난 마오 제디 가르차고 월스나 쇼진이 디차고 월다 가르스 월다 수수라 녀바쟁이 티라 녀바 단동 마드 제주야당 그게 녀바제 티라 또지야 린당 요 수고 티라 도나가 수슈지 무제네 그 가르치는지 제외 있는 바바나제 가르친 제주 수수 가르치 그래 그 가르치만 제된 가주 제도 말해 가서 당신 제도 말해 코코랑 상담하는 누구 마도 그 상무딩 가서 라발요 말해 코랑래 나 거의 전제지는 가르칠 때 남의 뒤땅 가르친 지주 수수 제거에 드니 매버 차고 말 수수 제거에 가래 배나 나이나 단다 레고나로 기디 가소리 이 제로 소바당 아니지 밀러 토지진这些 제로 소바당 근데도 안 수수기 칸된 제로 소바당 다 만에 까든데 나니 제슈니 제슈 송바이나 로 도시 간나바이나 디 제야 아니 추는데 시루지로 추시 다 디디 문에디 가서 린 야슈도들 디가나 도나지 수수 도나지에 디 문에기 전 여버실라 도나지에 있나 수수진 당디 치를 당고 전제제를 도나 또 휴지무제나 그 전제제들이 나 여버수도 대지 가서 그래 신당 치치 당고도 이 신당 제는 디어베 다 문에 진 제주 말아 수수를 전주시 거로
Now, there's so many different ways to think about a situation such as the one Rinpoche just explained. So let's say this person who's criticizing us is insulting us. If we think about this all the time, if we become obsessed with this, it's such a waste of time. So at times we may go over this again and again and think about it, but it's just a waste of time. We shouldn't spend too much time to reflect on that. And if the person, well, having insulted us, having had the intention to hurt us, well, if we give it too much time, if we think about it too much, we give this kind of insult too much of a value. And in the end, we can't control this other person. I mean, they may abuse us, they may insult us, they may criticize us, but we can't control the person. We cannot change this person. We can only change ourselves. So it's best in such a situation to just ignore it, to not spend too much time thinking about it, and to do whatever we can do, to focus on ourselves in the sense of trying our very best. So Rinpoche says for instance, he works at the private office. So he does his work, he sometimes writes things down, he explains things, at other times he does his prayers. So to focus on what needs to be done, to focus on what we usually do in our life, to say our prayers, to do our practice. And just because we've been insulted, just because we've been criticized or even insulted, we can still do the same thing. Rinpoche says he can still teach the Dharma, and still do lots of other things. And therefore, it's important to focus on what's important. What is really important? What is it we need to do? And not to give value to the negative actions of another person, even if they affect us, by thinking about them time and again. It's just a waste of time. We shouldn't give value to that kind of negative action, but we should give value to our own work. We should make that important and not consider what someone else has said to be so important. So in that way, there are many different ways to think about this, to remain true to ourselves in that sense, and not get obsessed with what other people have done.
Di jie sang dan. Danyang shu shinda jine sang dan di gang la, juan ju jie di ke ku ji yao ma re. Mi ji zo na die cabi ji lari da. Juan ju ji ngi dan, dura dangi se di ku chuni re. Naon rukin chi yung re, naon min rukin chi yung re. Dunang kanya men ken chi yung re, di mi chang ma la jiba ji jang ma do, cheba ji yao ma da. Ro.
Something else to consider is the fact that while we live in society, we live together with other people, it is just natural that some people will approve of what we do and some people will disapprove. Some people will like what we're doing, will think what we do is good and like it, and other people don't like it and may speak up and criticize us. So in that way, it's important to know that this is just the nature of things. Living in society, this is what happens. It's just a natural consequence of living with other people, and to become aware of it and accept this.
Di zang de ma se we, kar so gore. Zhou zhou di, ta zhou di, su su la, zhou kar cha gore. Su su che gu ba di kar sina, o su su mi ce din chi che. Su su gi che gu ba chao di che. Ta, di, che bi ji la ri da. Su su che gu ba di che. Su su mi ya wu ji, samwa nang da, di che. Ta di ni chang ma ina. Ta su su rin tang o di ri da, ta di ri. Ta di che cha bi ji la, 오다 듀라 동켄 용의 용주 메라 동켄 용의 용주 데고 지존나 프랑스 칼레마 카는 가리 용의 용주 프랑스 칼레 가서 칼레게 메는 듀라 가서 땅 주메 수수 제고에 받친 침바이나 오 중대 띵띵 튕그리 뉴버 띵띵 튕그리 다 니마지라 오 당아 대당 야부 중바 인상 제부 띵데지 튕도 상배 에 딜레요 다 가서 우리 뒤에 딜레 자자자다 뭐 얘기지.
And not just that, what is really most important? Most important is to live our life. So to do what is necessary to do what is necessary in the sense of what is meaningful. So to be a good person, to be an honest person. With that is our value. Our value is to do what is right, and to be in such a way honest, and work hard. So to really give value to our life and not to listen here and there, getting praised or getting criticized, not to pay too much attention to what other people say. It doesn't matter. In the end, it doesn't matter. We should not pay too much attention to this. Instead, we should continue to work with self-confidence, with determination, continue to do our work as best as we can, as much as we can, and as best as we can. And if we do this and do not listen left and right to this criticism or this praise and so forth, but just know what we're doing and are determined what we're doing, then we will reap a positive result from that.
Nangpar luju le deba ina sanje jongdin de yawa shaja tuba myu le pebe kato tila kurangi kunje reda ro kurangi be shatagin de oyube kunje binja ro tada didi kaza 해진기 다 상제 jongdin de dindegi be misegi be xianda minjao chi yordi junju chi gorda kurang binja la ro binja ji junju chi di gang ngone chi da di ngone nga zui na bo zi sang sang su ri do 상제 jongdin de le chana zumares mingugo danggen res chana gi xie gi chu di ni demba mares chana gi xie be chu di ni cewa jing gi chu re xas en chana gi jia jun xi gi dus be 가서 그래 시 도자 시부딘데 라지니 준지 지고래 준지 지고디 상제 중딘데 이 쿠란 빈자라 카데 자야 강라 뒤지지 땅미도 대신 쿠란 가르는 더주 상제 중딘데 쿠란기 냥네 제지 아니 밀라 민 저유킨 미기지 저저킨 용킨다 상제자를 주 코킹기 밀레베나 딜라 춘이 덴버템베 주원 주르스 아니 무비 인로 디수 리시자지 니로 메다베 튼송 상제 중딘데 쿠란기 냥뇨 가르 요버디 파송 다디 송용디 간라 다 쿠란라 냥뇨 가르 요버디 파송야 다랑 간라 깔레 제야마도 빈자 해신라 카데자야라 디간은 구코니 데미도 해신라 카데자야라 구코니 데베이나 상제 중딘데 단단 가랑 수기 미tum슈 망보기 짜친부 지에디 자금 말해서 것도 해신 가르치니 쿠란 치주 상제 디친도 다나신 공부루두 딩아수다 티버친부 자가르당 디네 자나치 디네 디지라 티버친부 표다 디수 다로 다 티버친부 취 다서기 좀바 용조 나로라 단 공부루두 레 하버지 자친부 지에지 요마로 이는 공부루두 미일레 페이지지니 전주 쟁인수 가르치 이거스나 전주 빼친부지 이거래 상제 중딘데기 취 노트스 송스 아니 상제 중딘데기 마시버지 지랑기 시송스 지난기 상제기 취를 랑수지기도 가서 그래 민국고 땅에기 근데 지기도 근데 준지지 진의 준지 제베들은 공부를 주시 다 송만보여 리투 졸로서 디즈요레 디즈는 디고를 계속입니다 공부를 주 쿠란기 상제기 취디 리베군이 봐 주지지 동번이스는 데르지를 쓰기를 다음에 벗는 론데네르제 다나신기 다신양지기 상주기 센선 데네 공부르세기 밀럽 템베 취취취디 탕랑디 만도 송야 디랑강의 슈제니 슈도 디랑강의 슈제니 슈디 단 제부 가르쳐 버리 상제기 템벌 할레비 핀도 진부 좀 버려 제가 아주 딜을 미비다고
And we should think of the different biographies of the great masters of the past. So let's take Buddha Shakyamuni himself. He took birth in the human realm. He was born as a human being, and some of his relatives criticized him. They criticized him when he gave teachings, for instance. So they said that his teachings were not true. They were not in accordance with reality. They were violent kind of teachings. They were lies. He didn't teach what not in accordance with how things really exist and so forth. So in many different ways, he was criticized, for instance, by his relative Devadatta. And it's actually considered very difficult if your own relative criticizes you. It's not just a stranger, but someone who's related to you. And the Buddha didn't waste any time responding to it, reacting to it. Instead, he went to do what he thought was right. He continued doing what he thought was right, to teach about reality, to teach about the truth, to teach according to his own experience. He continued to teach on. And no matter what Devadatta said to him, and it didn't bother him in any way. He knew what he was doing was right, and he can just continue to benefit sentient beings without being bothered what he was told by one of his relatives. And that is one of the reasons why he was such an excellent teacher, because he just continued. He was confident about what he was doing, and he didn't get distracted. Another example is Nagarjuna, the great Nagarjuna, who gave extensive teachings or extensive explanations on what the Buddha had taught. So he became very popular in India, in China. His teachings spread everywhere. So his teachings, in particular of the Sanskrit tradition, spread far and wide because of his efforts, because of his writings and his teachings. But many criticized him. They would say that Nagarjuna's teachings were mistaken, they were wrong, that he has taught things that the Buddha never taught, that he deceived other people, he made things up, or what he taught was not what the Buddha has taught. So has taught. So a lot of people criticized him in that way, but he never mentioned this in his text. For instance, in his 6 treatises on reasoning, the 6 treatises on logic, he doesn't mention that kind of criticism. He composed these different texts, these treatises, because he felt he would benefit sentient beings. It was necessary to teach it, and he was not distracted by his critics. Now he taught, for instance, selflessness. He taught equalizing and exchanging self with others. He taught, basically gave all these different teachings, these important teachings, only what is of benefit to others. He only did what was right with the intention to benefit others, and did not pay any attention to what other people would say. So we should take these great beings as an example. We should follow their example and do what they did, to work as hard as we can to try to benefit others in the way Buddha and Nagarjuna and so forth did, and not listen left and right to criticism.
现在的dinek 상지 다 dineyang 상로 동야기 가슈 신다 매버 말다 가성 쉬버 나신 변나 디여버이나 준제긴 제 돈이 시버 있나리다 주단 제비긴 제 돈이 시버 있나 그게 준제제디 주매버 용고 말어 주매 지면의 용고 말 주질의 띠니 용고 주야 가르의 띠니 용고르스나 지제너리다 그 준제 용야디 수수기 제단지 돈이 수수기 강주니 제매버 있나리 수수기 가서 난지 뛴당 남매 쉬어야로 소바다 가서 변의 수지 참여버지 비제 나로도 소바나 군신 말어 취탕제 친거 말어다 참여버지나 다 디메디 강라 상상 지능구 코디디 강라 뇌기 공부 디능구 코디 강라 저로디 통고 말어 디나신 세상 상지 단디디 강라 니 미신다 딘데 남매 쉬어야로 소바다 딘데 용구도야 남매 동야기 공농 요 말디 제단지 토디 나 그게 따디 강라 남의 땅송 상고다. 뭐 수수기 남의 땅요 말. 다 딘제기 수수기 제단지 토네 바로 부기 전주디 레버 인시 바로와.
Another aspect we should also consider, and Rinpoche spoke about this yesterday, Rinpoche discussed this to some degree also yesterday. Well, cause and effect. What about cause and effect? We should consider the law of cause and effect, because a situation such as being criticized or insulted, well, those don't arise without a cause or without a condition. Everything that happens, situations such as these, well, they arise from particular causes and conditions. Now, to think about what could be the causes of such a situation. Well, even if we haven't intentionally, well, maybe we made a mistake in the sense that we didn't intentionally make a mistake, but it seemed that way. I mean, we didn't pay too much attention, or they didn't pay too much attention. This other person may not be omniscient, not knowing our our intention in a certain moment, that we didn't mean to, for instance, ignore something or ignore someone. That wasn't our intention, but it's misunderstood by this other person. Maybe this other person was distracted with some other work. Sometimes if you're looking in the front and you're so busy with what's happening in the front, you don't realize what's happening in the back. So basically, it was unintentionally that we made a mistake.
录用的囊路了，第中国多，卷堂节数数卷的意思，原点堂节新的原点的意思。但顶这个上路乐清不去当图呢，样什么略略掐推去。
在修心教授
Also, what the Lojong or the mind training texts teach is that all faults are my own faults. All good qualities are the qualities of others. So this is one of the teachings that you find in the Lojong or in the mind training texts. So if someone is an effective practitioner, they're actually able to practice in that way.
叔叔的对的，告诉我的，木贵孙子之类的，季节的木贵，季节的古月的，卷的古月的，但季节的木贵之类，但木贵之前别忘的当不赢呢，今天的是吧？过卷的恰起赢不，赢别忘当不赢呢，第叔叔的卷干的恰过是呢，叔叔让你了，明堂节叔叔的搞不切是吧？搞不用推去，但女的面送是当个说。 미창마 수수의 가부지에 토야기 수수의 뉴버디만 상상이 마강이 힘이 용거로 디 시자 투서디 수수기 미창마 가워지 제투요 말어 디 디차니 수수기卷수를 차기도 와
Now again, regarding this criticism, well, first of all, there's criticism that is helpful, and there's criticism that is not helpful. This is also something we should consider. So it could be actually helpful, this kind of criticism. But let's say it's not helpful. It doesn't help us in any way, doesn't benefit us in any way. Well, how is what is said in the Lojong text that this is our fault? In what way is this our fault? Well, because we lack the ability that everyone likes us. We don't have the ability. It's just not in our ability that all people react to us in a positive way. So that's our fault. It's something we are unable to do.
明显的的叔叔的卷卷节的季节呢，告诉我叔叔的规划，因是个的卷月吧，因呢拼图气月吧，顶这用过，但第呢卷节的古月了，叔叔的规划恰过了，第一恰呢卷节的规划第呢看没多是吧？但的古月叔叔的，但这是卷节不的叔叔的木贵节因吧因呢，但叔叔的对的卷数的恰过了，但卷因吧因那样，卷因没往的当那样。 수수기卷레스 가래 러디가나 수수를 미탄제 가와 제토에게 뉴버디면 송레스.
So the Chinese translator asked again to clarify. So Rinpoche explained it again. So what is this helpful? What does it mean that a criticism is helpful? Well, it can be criticism that is beneficial to us in the sense that it's something that we need. We need to hear this because it helps us to make changes and so forth. However, then there's also criticism that we don't need in the sense that it's not helpful to us. So in the first case, of course, there's no fault. We wouldn't see this criticism as anything faulty because we benefit from it. In the second case, it is something that we would see as a fault. But here, if we apply the Lojong, the principle of the Lojong text, then to see it as our fault, as our inability to make other people, to please other people, or to have the ability that to be able to, for everyone to like us. So that's also something we are lacking.
叔叔的约为原点堂节的迷信的原点来设的，叔叔的约为原点堂节新了点的用过，现在呢新了点的用不下大用不印的讲了呢原点堂节新的原点的，卷堂节让原的，第中国多地方，卡住我的家亲不多。
Therefore, our own personal faults are our so when something negative happens, it's our own fault, and our good qualities are the qualities of others. Now, having explained the first part about the fault, here the second part is then how our own good qualities, how are these qualities the qualities of others? Well, in the sense that we wouldn't have these good qualities if it wasn't for others, if there weren't other sentient beings who had taught us things and so forth, then we wouldn't have these particular qualities.
인상아랑 먹어봐 이나 아니
먹어봐,
가네체네
이나?
디 게임기 아니
다,
디
미고바 인바이나 다 수수의 미고바 지나 수수의 뒤디 미고야당 수수의 뒤디 뒤전선의 차고로 다 전 인비 왕의 당내 수수의 서거다 수수의 미고야지나 다 수수의 구요마 수수의 뉴요래 수수의 뉴요베이나 수수의 다 수수의 전주선의 전차고다 디 수수의 뉴바쟁이선의 차고로 수수의 뉴베 진선의 차고로 뉴베 주선의 차고로 다 수수의 뉴베 주 인바이나야디 수수기 가서 수수기 쭌레스 수수기 쭌 가레스를 디간라 수수기 미디 수수를 가와지 수도요 말어 수수기 미디 수수기 뉴버트에 지니 미디 수수를 가와지 도요 말어 가부여지 수도요 말어 수도요 말다 가족이 미참한 수수를 가부여지 수도요 말어 다디 수마토상 수수를 메가키디 용교로 간데 차스다
So the Chinese translator ask again, so how could this become, what does it mean to be helpful or not helpful? And how does this become our fault? And so Rinpoche explained again that, well, certain criticism is constructive, we can utilize it, and so we may actually welcome it. Whereas negative criticism that doesn't benefit us, well, we react in a negative way, we don't like it, and we see it as something faulty, as something that harms us. And so to then not blame the other person for it, but also recognize that it is our fault in the sense of like we don't have the ability to make everyone like us. So there's also something that we're lacking. Of course, we cannot make everyone like us, but that's still something we lack from our own side, to also think that to not just totally blame the other person, but also see that we lack the ability to be clear enough that the other person doesn't criticize us or to act in such a way that other people don't dislike us and so forth.
딘다고 비전나 송해야 되는 거지. 다 디미 산도에 되는 지르기도. 당에 다기 디지를 쉬어야지. 디시에 다기 바로디. 그지 라드시샤. 다 세상 재민도 미신다기 수수를 수도 전주체 디 디로 다 전주체 디 전주체바 이날에 다 공총 가서 우리 계제인데 통종 당에게 계제된 시에 이날에 딘데기 계제디기 있으로 계제디 수수기 계제디를 때에 수수기 심어도 마디오 용대 주로 마디오 용대 간도 수수기 상당하지 수미 이제기 넘버 2 버스너의 신지록이 나도지 진이 디왕기 용그레스 다기 쉬인 봐.
So Rinpoche said it kind of lost track a little bit what he was trying to say. But anyway, now he's getting back to it. So Rinpoche said, well, returning to the original example of another person criticizing us and in fact actually humiliating us and with their words, so insulting us, humiliating us, we feel unhappy in that moment. Well, why do we feel unhappy?
난간낭시 사신낭시 개요 말에 전주지기 용나 용주 뛰어당이 용나 용주 상상기 딘데기디 참아 쥐버 주연을다 개 지금 말에 가에 지금 말로 수수기 수수야제 동야기 랑가디 차상도 수수다 차상도 수수 마음발라 다 비제나로 제외는 수수 제어지마 미 류된지 렘버 제외에 있나야 랑가디도 신디를 수수기 가서 그래 다 연딩 친구 렌지지네 베나 디로와 가서 그런 가서 PhD 디그리지 제국이 유배이나 博士学位，顶这些连我那连个啷个今年都，差不多是吧？他顶这，他顾客差不多叔叔的月吧的，他都的确给切吧，甚至去属于的嘛，都月吧的，卡对的月吧的，他的确给钱呢，现在叔叔给写了个牛鞭当初呢，的确给切吧给水土嘛的，的确人都当推给写图嘛，现在第一的。什么出国找你的名多，什么都学习的，哦，看的老板人呢，居然看也没定去，度假乐那样几讲去，亚布乐那样几讲去，但都度假老板人呢看出的，山上了高来的去，高不来的去，多来的去，
그렇지.
가르치면서 미신다기 수술라 전주체用的讲了전주的雇用的讲了미신다기 우마딜 수술라다 전주체지네 저치 차용 거다. 또 저치 차용 거로. 저치 차발을 때네 不打不相识，是不打不相识。저치 차발을 때네 다 간다 쿠기 디 도난지 레차바로. 전주체서기 미딜라 초농부 초슈침부지기 돈이 전주체用거로. 세상 마음발라 지제는 두부 야슈차에게 국어디 어디는 구조로 왔다.
Mhm. So being unhappy, we only become happy because of our extreme wrong views. That's the only reason. Now, if we actually think in an extensive way, we should really expand our mind. We should take on a mind that is as vast as space, to not be so narrow-minded, and instead to be open and relaxed. And whatever happens, to be accepting of whatever happens. Sometimes there's praise, sometimes there's criticism, and to be patient with it, to have that open, spacious kind of mind that is accepting of whatever happens, and to understand that we can continue with what we're doing. We have the opportunity, for instance, to follow the Buddhist path. We have the opportunity to create the causes and conditions to be once again reborn as a human being in the future, so that we can continue with our practice, continue to follow the Buddhist path. We have other opportunities. We may have the opportunity to do a PhD degree, to work towards getting a degree. It may take some time. You need to take time. It may take a while. And if we're intelligent enough and we have all the mental capacity that is needed from doing a PhD, well, then maybe it doesn't take that long. We can maybe even do it quickly. But the point is, we should focus on all the positive parts in our life, the positive aspects in our life, all that is going right, all the opportunities we have. And when we understand that, we can come to see that there's no reason to be upset, even when something negative happens. So when someone praises us, fine. If someone criticizes us, fine. In fact, if someone says something negative to us, we should be happy. So the Chinese translator asked, why should we be happy? And Rinpoche said, well, if there's another person who criticizes us, who maybe insults us, well, they're paying attention to us. They are interested in us, even in a negative way. And that's the first step towards having a relation with another person, even if it starts in a negative way. They pay attention to us. There's a certain interest in us, despite the negativity. And who knows, maybe in the future we become best friends. So just the fact that they get to know us, they pay attention to us, even in such a negative way, it opens the door to friendship and so forth.
本来俺说南军第四个，가르쳐 그래. 수수기 다우디 수수를 가진 친구 인스기도. 또 다우디 수수를 가진 친구 인스. 쿠여벌 때네 쿠기 진제시네. 아니 수수 상당고에지다. 디네수 가서 그래. 수순 좋은 주의긴 구주 지진에 근데 중송스. 별로 인도네시아에 지어래. 가서 그래. 딱 디리다. 비자 땅이 바로라리다. 비자 땅이 바로라. 다 링두르요로. 링두르요 디간라 카데디 수르 전주지네. 체란다 개 꾸지 시기민도 싫어. 답에 구버구나 레셨어. 근데 이게 전주 제로야. 전주 시부들의 제도가 쿨러 시부 포어다. 다 시부 포어라 되네 쿨러 유지워다. 아다 그 나베 구버 나베 구버 멤버 중에 땡기 이상지 러중 시부지 베시 러중 할레브 제지니 그 개버 차성로. 나 개버 차베 가도 뒤문에 그 개버 차야지 쿨러 렌로에 제들이다. 그 이제 렌로에 제들 아니 그 개버 차성리. 다 개버 차도 다 비제기 된다 만부 통용되는 상루지단 묘목이 중에 만부 통용 상니버지 당용되는 다 가수 kuigi be nyomo gin rutang da lang rutang sang xing chang de gang la da di gang la lang nyang ling jing gu zu ni de gang la ani be maung ba la sur ni ma jun ju jing ni mi ju gu bo re sing de pa qian ji tu ji qi xi bu ji pian si ji di ji di jun ju jing le de ga gu ye se de ni di si ge da ge mu jin ga gu ye su
And actually, of course, in the scriptures, we find the explanation that our enemy is very kind to us. So to appreciate the kindness of our enemy, in the sense that, well, if someone criticizes us, for instance, or insults us, well, it gives us the opportunity to think, to reflect on our own behavior, on our own mistakes, and to make changes. The enemy can actually it provide us with the opportunity to change things, to recognize our faults, and to make the appropriate changes. And in Tibet, there's this story. In Tibet, it's about these two people who were studying the scriptures, so probably monks studying the scriptures, and they were competing with each other. And one of those two students of the Dharma criticized the other, saying, "You're so stupid, you don't know anything." So the person who was criticized got really kind of upset about this, in the sense of like, now I'll show them, I'll show this person how hard I can work. And so he then started working really hard and studied really made a great effort and did his very best to gain a good understanding of the scriptures, although it was really just retaliating after having been called a stupid person. So he just took revenge, basically. But never mind. So it helped him. Because of this criticism, he studied the scriptures extensively. He learned about his own afflictions, the disadvantages of afflictions, and so forth. He learned how to practice the path, how to train the mind, how to transform the mind. And in the end, he became happier, became a better person, was able to advance in such an effective way. So eventually he understood it was because of the criticism, and he thanked the person who criticized him.
순위了查传不赢呐，那大概军队跟着我的吸引吧，军队跟着我的当多嘛都是定色度，定色是了过来，这里嘛这里嘛都是差着轻，当前几年上东不赢呐，수수기 재단기 진지 미 파슈부기 전주 딜레디 거로 다 전주 레야기 투서 진짜디 수술로 투디기도 수술로 투디기도 다 딘데 투데디 그 주던 제비긴 저 집부 투니 시고래 다 가상 슈바나시 딜레 렌데기 고세데 지원하시 고순 딘데 시바이나 때나 파르부디기 수술로 전주 제지지네 수술로 상로 동야기 국가 세버지 제디가 수술로 펜토선 수수기 재단기 진지 하루부디 수수의 전주 진이 수행이가라 수수기 미신다들은 녀버 제송 수수기 재단기 진지 그 전주 진이 수버래 전주 제디가라니 지 나니 지도자를 디가라 디바사고 어라다 저 마롱어 지고로 저그 저 마롱어 진이 수버래 디차버래 디차야 진짜 수수의 투에서 수수기 파녀버지 파슈디 수수의 펜토의 순대 지차송 디 렌제 단다기 시고마다 렌제는 마시고 중에라 준제인 주당 다랑 툰다 마또 상로 시 차스 남바이나 디지지 나 디딘도 단도 레 준제 단도 남바이나 나 딜레장
Now going back to cause and effect. So to go to consider the law of cause and effect, and to go a little deeper than before. to go to a more subtle level, to kind of reflect on the law of cause and effect on a more subtle level? Well, first of all, the fact that I've been insulted and I've been criticized, well, I'm involved in that. I somehow did something that caused this criticism. So I'm the reason, basically, for someone criticizing me. Now, we need to now approach the law of karma, the law of past and future lives, but without getting right into that. Actually, without considering the law of karma and past and future lives, just thinking, well, actually having been criticized, receiving criticism, it gives me the opportunity to change. This negativity, I can turn it around and it can actually benefit me. So actually, in that way, it's benefited me. On the other hand, I'm the reason that someone else accumulated the negativity of the speech, having insulted me, having criticized and insulted me. Well, therefore, they accumulated negativity, which means I get the benefit from being criticized, and the other person, they have a disadvantage. They accumulate negativity. So if I think about it, if we think about it in the right kind of way, then I have the advantage and the other person has the disadvantage. And here's what Rinpoche says, I'm not talking about karma. I'm just talking about it, but what is happening right here and now.
지왕하마 밀어파 두자체긴 제부디 수수기 랭이 버치면 제부디 수수기 류강의 미용디강의 아니 미신다기 준주칭이 수수의 뉴버지킨 수수의 두자체긴 참말로 수수기 칭아미기 자와 내 자와 제당당 지지진에 오더 주베군의 수수기 칭아미기 내 자와 제당기 투네 연구여의 인디강의 투세디 수수리다 수수기 내 자와 마롱아 집에 딜러 투 데리강라 다 민신다기 준주 참마디 자오징이디 수수련도다 로 무제구제 참마 자오 수수련도다 수수의 준주 제레샤마도 민신다기디 쿠지러스 제진의 디 제레미도.
And if now we consider also karma in past lives, past and future lives, in particular past life, if we think of past karma, then it is my fault I've been criticized because I accumulated the karma. I gave an opening, basically, to someone insulting me. I created the causes and conditions for that to happen because of myself having insulted someone, for instance, in the past. So either directly or indirectly, I am responsible. I did contribute to this situation. So it can be traced back to me. It can be traced back to my negative actions in the past. So I've accumulated the karmic causes for this to happen to me. And therefore, it's important to also consider that aspect, to consider the aspect of karma, that nothing happens, or such a situation doesn't arise without me having accumulated the causes and conditions for it.
다딘디 수수기 랭이사빈 제부디 단다 친데 수수기 류딘라 류지딘도 멤버레 류지딘도 멤버 인디간라 다 딜라 상루동에 니요레 딘바 인디간라 신체네 미신달라 파뉴버지에기 리단 랭이 베리디 산이 사주민도 자오 마롱베테디 산이 제주민도 상 자오 장부 샤다시엘라 구만다야지 ngār lēngi jīwīn drēbu dī tāndā sīndī kī lū tūla mēmbī kā la mī kī lū tīngi tūla mēmbī yīndī kāng la mī lū tīngi tūla mēndī sāngla tōngā yu bā ān tā nā shīngi dī juān dī chōng sōng nā dī la pā dōnglīng jē shīkīn dīn drē kī kā jī la mēmbī rī kia wā sāngbu rī chīn rō lēngi sāwīn drēbu dī dī nē sē rū rī sāngbu sūn rō lēngi sāwīn drēbu jī dī nē dzōn rū rō dī yāng pē kia wā sāngbu jī rī sāng sāng gā wā gōng yā dī yōng yā dō.
So the fact that I accumulated negative karma in the past, and it's now ripened in this life, having taken a human existence, having been reborn human, well, this negative karma ripens now in the experience of being criticized. We should realize, we should understand that. And that may give rise to two positive reactions. One reaction would be to rejoice, or no, to first understand that this criticism only happened because I accumulated a negative action in the past. So to therefore be determined in the future, I will not create such an action. I will do whatever I can to not accumulate any negative action. So to be determined to refrain from any kind of harmful actions and therefore negative results in the future. Secondly, it can give rise to rejoicing in the fact that this karma now has ripened and can no longer ripen. So it cannot ripen again. That would be the second kind of reaction, the second way we can make this situation meaningful, by being happy that this happened to me because this karma can no longer ripen. The karma has ripened now, and that's it. So therefore, there are these two aspects. First of all, being determined to no longer create a similar negative action again, or a negative action, not to create a negative action in the future, and to also rejoice that this negativity ripened in the form in which it did.
때는 수수기 가진 신도치 미지여버이나 수수랑내기 미디 수수를 가진 하장기 친구인바 하시 바송도 그 매더 매버인바 라니를 뒤뒤 쿠베 매더 매바 그 니버도 구유여버지인바 로 가진 치란 가진 하장기 친구 나시 바송도 쿠를 띵고바 나시 바송도 그 수수를 하장기 가진 친구인바 근데지 딘데지 임바 수수기 원전 예배 미지기 수수의 전제 제바이나 다그 전제 제바이나 류인 개매 공알베 같은 기타 출신이 전제 가르 제바이나 돼 전을 마통해지로 다그 전제 제바된 그 연대가 파통해지 수수 쿠베 삼번나다시는 알 제바인지 공알지 제 전제 제부인의 제바인지를 상상수의 지진에 이 전제 제내 전제 수수의
Now imagine there's this really kind person, someone who's shown you so much kindness, who's been greatly kind towards you, who has been kind in the past, in the future, and in between. Someone that you depend on because of their incredible kindness. Someone you need to depend on, someone who's so incredibly kind to you, whose mere existence is extremely important to you. Think of such a person. If this kind of person were to criticize you, well, we don't really mind. If they criticize us, we don't really mind, in the sense that we may have the thought, well, it's probably necessary. They say this to benefit me. They're so kind to me. They have my interest at heart. So therefore, it can only be good. So in such a situation, we may even find it's beneficial that they criticize me, because there's a sense they're on my side. Whatever they do is good for me. So even their criticism is something beneficial. So even if they criticize us, our closeness towards them, our feeling of closeness, and our love for that person doesn't diminish, does not disappear.
가다냐베 신진 슬라윤디강라 나란솔라 뚜디 가르차고 어르스나 나란솔라 뚜디 치러 탄지지 아마차고 왔다 신디 아마디 미지지 아마로와 지원디 아마디다 지원디 아마로와 다 난가다냐베 신진디 수수기 치러 띵기 아마리다 치러 띵지 아마 뒤띵지 아마리 가서 올 뜻다 통모 매바네 하마 매베 토모 매번에 타마 매베다 뒤에 상수했게 요 말에 토모 매번에 손디다 타마 요 말에다 뒤 투타 매바 디징기 디 뒤지 아마디 토모 매번에 타마 매베 뒤 디징기 뒤띵지 아마디 나가다 냐면 생진들이다. 나가다 냐면 생진세 생진 초바지거로 어떻게 수수기 뒤땡도 땡색이 아마들이다. 다스 땡색들이 말다. 수수기 구바 참아 수수라 구베 연된다. 수수기 뇌베 된탕지 강라 땡네 용사기 강라 땡네 용사당 뒤탕지 수수의 제긴디 수리스나 나가다 냐면 생진리. 이 나가다 냐면 생진디 수수기 뒤 땡지 아마 치료 땡지 아마 어디 차리고 그랬어.
So likewise, well, sentient beings are in the same way are so extremely close to us. There are these kind beings, if we think of all sentient beings who equal the expanse of space in terms of the countless amount of sentient beings. So they are our mother, like they're our eternal mother, in the sense of like we're not just thinking of someone being our mother just in this lifetime, but basically all sentient beings are, for all lifetimes, they have been our mother. They are our mother. Since beginningless times, they have been our mother. Since beginningless time, we have benefited from sentient beings. So sentient beings, not to think of the individual being, but taking all sentient beings together, we've benefited so greatly from them. Since beginningless time up to now and endlessly in the future, we will be benefited.
说了之后，哪个的那个神经了偏别上不接的，偏别上不接气血的，哪个的那个神经了迷你接的嘛都，什么接气不接受药嘛，接受个西药嘛，神经了之后接呢，让你了的用过，神经了你不接呢，让你了动眼的用过，让你身体一短大用住，他叫西面王的结尾呢，吃了西面的短大用住。 남배兄弟协会呢，他把的团结金被团队用住，申请了店呢，申请了店呢，用过嘛都申请了满店不用来借用嘛，说即将，变那身体基本协会呢，那就说绿电那申请了店呢用不，所定申请的，只要当申请的乡军结不了，乡部结不了店呢，所的出土过的，乡军这个即将面，一切这个即将面呢，那就所的出嘛的。 아니 연된 디양 생진을 띠니 용버 게다 로에 디양 지존을 게다 주고 다 참아래 다 사야 동자 생진선 다 생진디 수수도 뒤뒤배 가서 그래 가든 치슈 딜레 가든 치오지 매버래 문에기 뒤에 다른 분이 상담이나.
So in the sense, therefore, if we just take sentient beings in general, all our positive qualities come from sentient beings. Everything we want to achieve, it comes from sentient beings. So therefore, if we take all sentient beings together, taking them in general, then all sentient beings are for all lifetimes, like our mothers, are for all lifetimes. For all times, they're like our mother. They're the kindest being possible. In what way? Well, all good qualities, even just expanding our mind, generating bodhicitta, generating love and compassion for all sentient beings. Well, it's dependent on sentient beings. And if we generate love for all sentient beings, we experience happiness. If we harm sentient beings, we experience suffering. So our well-being is totally dependent on sentient beings. And in that way, we can consider all sentient beings our mothers for all times and for all lifetimes. So without them, we wouldn't have a human body. We wouldn't have this body we have right now. We wouldn't be alive. We wouldn't have been raised with love and compassion. We wouldn't have the qualities we have. we wouldn't have the reputation that we have now, like having a good reputation. It's also sentient beings. Without people who like us, who appreciate us, how could we have a good reputation? Food, drink, clothing, everything comes from sentient beings. So basically, everything good in our life now, in the past, and in the future comes from sentient beings. So sentient beings are exactly that kindest possible being there is. This kindest possible being, because sentient beings, taking them in general, as a whole, everything good in our life comes from them. And any kind of suffering comes from harming them. And therefore we can say the most kindest being, who is kindest to us, it's all sentient beings.
다 딘데 인디가라 신디기 파마기 수수의 전제 제베이는 가서 롱키랑 말이 로 다 쓰레띵기 파마기 수수의 전제 제디 가르치는 롱랑 그래 가르치네 신의 마지의 연구 그래 집에 지장레스 다 공노 두자 유메세 공노 가르 유메세디 지다 공노 가르 유메디 미쿠랑기 자오디 겨차 마차세디 미쿠랑기 공노는 되어 유지디 이내 수수의 뒤디 미파르부디 공농 야부지 키네 계제시에디 공농 야부 키워디 계제디 수수를 뇌나 그 공농 야부 요버디 수수르기 세번 조마송 파르부디 공농 두자지 요버 있는 그 계제시에디 수수를 편소나 공농 요메디 조 말에 수수를 편마면서 그게 자어디 수수를 편도 자침부 용만 유티리 편도 자침부 요는 그 공농 가르 요니 세번 조마송
So, for instance, if we just think of the parents of this lifetime, I mean, if we feel loved and appreciated by our parents, then even if they criticize us, well, it's okay. We can easily take their criticism because we know they do it in order to support us. But even if they don't have, if someone doesn't have that motivation, well, maybe they have the motivation to harm us. If someone criticizes us, maybe have the motivation to benefit us. But actually, it's possible that someone has a motivation to benefit us and it may still harm us. On the other hand, someone may have the motivation to harm us and that actually benefits us. So it just depends on what we do with it. Therefore, it's not important what the other person what the other person's motivation is in the end. If the criticism was expressed with a negative, out of a negative motivation, but we can still utilize it in a way to change our behavior and so forth, so it becomes positive. Therefore, in the end, we can ignore the fact they have a positive or negative motivation. It doesn't matter. It depends on how we use it, and in that way, we can, if it's beneficial to us, it's not important whatsoever what their intention were.
그 공농 도자유네 그 계제디 가서 그래 로 수수의 편토는 다른 저거 디장 그 공농 야부유는 그 계제디 수수의 뇌나 공농 야부유의 수수의 개편마송 개종마송
So remember, she said it again. If it benefits us, if it's beneficial, even despite their negative, the negative intention, well, then it's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what their intention were. On the other hand, if it harms us, even if they have a positive, if our mind reacts in a negative kind of way, even if their motivation was positive, it doesn't make a difference.
신디기 파면츠 보고를 상부시부지 제지네 가디네 지리지 아니 로종 제외나 깔레 카기리 로종 게 맞에는 디그리스 아니 gen라기 보고를 가서 그래 도난 친구지 내된 제지네 로종 제야라베 당부 제소는 아니 gen라냐도 자린자 보고인데 가서 그래 깔레 카고 수도 마수시 제지네 근데 제외는 체도 보고 가보다 류디오 지부스는 지용 거리 보를 미지고랑 쥐지소 저 그래서 디인디간라 근데 디 가서 디송요 가서 진짜베 나로를 임바유 디양 미핀 미샤오스 로 동해이야 강핀당스 동해이야 강핀당 디야 미핀 미자오스 동해 이야 강편다 슬로인이가 최도 동해와 인버 있는데 동해 강에 지유버 있는다 미신다 준주지디 카도 최도 디 마디지다 요로 레디 풀어 펜소나 이 제고레스 디 딘디고레스 다양 디야 미핀 미자오스 최도 디부요버지 최도베 되려 당지 야부시부 유버지 로 되려 당디 가수 지부요로 가부요로 되려 당지 근데 부장 정부라 가수 가서 우리 핀도 맹이지 수소나 다디 된라 뉴스 디 제주요 말스 어디스고
So actually, our parents need to be really careful in terms of criticizing us, in the sense that, well, actually it can be really good for us to be criticized. Because if they did always what we want, if they always pampered us, I mean, giving us candies whenever we wanted candy, if we don't want to go to school, then that they would say that they would let us not go to school and so forth. So in that case, it's actually harming us. It's actually something negative and not something something that it should be desired by us. So therefore, our parents, it's actually helpful. So it's actually beneficial for us if our parents sometimes criticize us and show us the way through their criticism, through maybe words that we don't like to hear. And this is also something that Ayadeva says in his 400 verses, when he basically says, if it harms us now, but not in the future, then it's something good. How can it not be beneficial? So of course, and on the other hand, if it's benefits us now but not in the future, how can we say it benefits us? So in other words, there are certain things, so such as criticism, for instance. Yeah, in the spur of the moment, we may feel unhappy, we may get upset, but if it helps us in the long term, it's only something beneficial. We cannot say that it's harmful, but it's something beneficial, it's something positive. Whereas on the other hand, if yes, we don't want to go to school, we just want to eat candies and so forth. So in the short term, there's some well-being, but in the long term, it harms us. So it cannot be beneficial.
가르 제외 이날에 로 전주 제디강라 나서 사다 둘라 두요로石头둘라 전주 제외 이나 두기 추르디게 난주게 땡 말어 가르콜라 가르는 푸동로에 게요 말어 어디 나신시 라는 친구 나로라 가당베 기시 가래 샤라오기 디송버레스 가당베 기시 신다 송기 쳔메시지네 뉴 가서 뉴스바세다 군조 제디라 같이 러버 있나야 둘러 러버도 지버레스 개구지요 말스 잠불러네 간드레다 두불러네 쭌드레지요 마 둘러 러버도 지버레스 다 카질 러디강라 잠불러나 가부차 두자러나 마가차 다디 안주 저타버레스 안주 저타니 안주 저타자 안주 나르시 다 즈요 말이야 슝고 말아 아니 근데 용고레스 그래서 디인디강라 나도 다기 공도 상다이디 미신다기 전주 지에 있는 양 개매바 개민도 상상 딘데기 상루지 제토바이나 가르러네 개민도 개매하고 심벌 르시기지 수퇴지 다디 가수 용다르 제도
Now, when it comes to criticism, we should be like soil and stones, in the sense that, well, whatever you say to a stone, they're not going to react. So just as a stone doesn't react, in the same way, we shouldn't react. So for instance, in the text in Lama Tsongkhapa's Great Lamrim, or the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, he mentions this Kadampa Geshe Sharawa, who was together with other Kadampa Geshes, and when he was criticized, he was like a stone. It didn't bother him. It didn't bother him at all that he was criticized. It didn't make any difference whether he was being praised or criticized. He was just like a stone. There was no reaction. So on the other hand, there are those people whose ears are too thin, or whose ears are not able to bear anything, in the sense that when they're praised, then they're pleased. When they're criticized, they're unhappy. we shouldn't have this kind of attitude, but rather be like a stone in the sense of not reacting, have a very relaxed, open, and calm mind, and not react in a positive way or negative way, depending on praise or criticism. So this would be an attitude that is beneficial, that benefits us, and we can all train ourselves. We can all practice to generate such an attitude.
卷卷些呢，什么就马几不恰，对了，当然什么搞不恰的，地样土色地，地里，가서 그래, 뇌샤기 찡기지 그래, 땅 상부를 차바다, 땅 임벌라, 다 미가와, 당원여바, 딘데기 강도 조딘 뇌샤지를 투디고지, 다 모부지를, 된지를 차대어, 굳이 류땅토마, 수수기 땅, 수수기 미 상부지어라, 가서 그래. 나 야부요래 세기 딘데기 땅을 차바디, 류땅토마 말어, 차바 여기서 땅 류땅만 토인자. 当了生都决定了，我第一期我的，第是帝国的上年学习，但是第一下俺说调整的去。
And actually, one of the main causes for the fact that when we criticize, we're unhappy. When we're being praised, we're happy. Is attachment. It's attachment. We're not able to let go. If someone praises us, we can't let go of that attachment. That is the attachment towards ourselves. So the sense that I'm really important, the sense that we are important, that our well-being is important. Based on that attachment, we're therefore happy when someone praises us, and we're unhappy when we're being criticized. So therefore, it's important to deal with attachment, and how to do so, Rinpoche will talk about tomorrow. But today, well, all that's left is questions. So Rinpoche will now answer some of your questions.
디调几就调通通当入去是老入去啊，通通就这样前几次建议开始录丢的，你嘛都呢？
So Rinpoche asked that the questions are shortened a little bit. The questions are sometimes too long, so Rinpoche requests
平时有熟悉，也有
shorter
光佛像，
questions.
往往是先熟悉，紧接着又光佛像，这样会不会因所缘变化影响到修者？已经有好几年了，也无什么进展，是不是这样不行啊？但他看的是了，我的古的treatment，상제기 꿀을 미네 공제디다 신의 지집에 띵인지 공고로 띵인지 공주라 우공에디 가서 농창로 퍼버디 송고 띵 공주를 마도 띵인지 공야 말해디 심벌 흘려 차이치도 우르미비 다 가서 농당가 지에디 치고를 띵 공주 장레스 무식이 공제디 다 상제기 꿀을 미네 공제디 상제기 꿀을 미네 공제야디 已经有好几年了哦，那就不得了了吧？他这边好几年以那卢卡西签约为呢，他卢卡西签是谁的？北亚不多的，但你们记拿落了，干脆公寓，工党干这是公寓，工党测定这个度别，工党测定这个为呢，干嘛干脆公寓？但人家记呢，他妈记干嘛记公？人家卢卡西签是呢，卢卡西签是了吧？呢？ 来的有人那人家人那干嘛起码上当呀？对那卢卡西签字的看的时候，当然你们人家上当的卢卡西签约呢，人家看没？他的人家亲不起来，他的公家党给托呢，上东国恰个来上不多，因那我长个这些的公司家也可能骂来的，蒙住。
얘는 지와디 브이타라 랍거리비.
啊，老路那我对，
예,
我讲的。 안에 디리샤 다 난주디 우장가 디 사기스 다야 상제기 꿀미니 공디 자기스 다我先进去가서 다 우공에 디지를 뒤지지니 상제 꾸르미니 공디간 미바 지불로디간라 아니 디 공자야라 띵인지 공야라 뉴마리베스 가인스나 루카셰지 친소디 단데바도 야제긴 조금도스 다디 겐조금도 세상 간데 제버레스 어딘다보지.
Okay, now I got the question. So, well, the question is basically about how about when you meditate on when you do the breathing meditation and meditation on the Buddha's body, both as a means to deepen, or both as a means to train in concentration. So isn't it harmful actually? Isn't it more distracting when first of all you focus on the breath and then you focus on the Buddha? Doesn't it distract your meditation? And also the person said, well, I've been doing this for many years and there's no real change, so it doesn't really seem to help. And Rinpoche's response was, well, first of all, there are different types of meditation. The breathing meditation is more a preparation. For instance, the 9-round breathing meditation, that is just to get prepared, to prepare ourselves to calm our mind, or to generate this calm state of mind, so that we're ready to then focus on, for instance, the Buddha, to do the meditation on focusing on the body of the Buddha. And secondly, with regard to having done this for many years, well, the question is, do you do this for a short time every now and then? And so this has been going on for many years. So every day you do a little bit, or once a week and so forth. Or are you doing this all the time and you've been doing it for many years? That's the question. So just having done it for many years doesn't really mean you can expect any progress, because you have to do it regularly and you have to do it a lot in order to get the respective result, to experience the desired result. So just having done it for many years is not enough. You have to do it continuously. You have to do it very often. So that's basically what Rinpoche said. He then repeated the question, or he then eventually translated it.
The zinre tsubi ke la ro ti da hu yu. Ta di ri sha ka sa long tin di gang la ngue la ka sa gu ta ka sa zhe ngu nang lo la che di ne su wu che di ne be gang be ba di ke che di da gi la sa ba yin. Din zhe gi ka tu u gong ye di re dan da nga zu long ru gu zhu xie le de u ka ba su bu na ka wan zhu yue me ke che ku yo ma ti sang dang gu ma re ku na u di na ya tin ani na 공기 윤번이 마 동, 진제기고 장거 쌓여지 버리지만 또 농 가번 주만 주 상로코나 동고 말이스. 디테어디 다기 그 당부 주딩 줄라 사바이.
Oh, this question that Rinpoche, the second question Rinpoche basically answered already. It's this question about the different methods Rinpoche described during an earlier teaching, when he talked about the 6 methods in the Abhidhammakosha, when you, for instance, watch the breath and you visualize the breath pervades your head and pervades your neck and pervades your chest and eventually pervades your whole body. That meditation, as opposed to the 9-round breathing technique, should we also meditate in the same way when we do the 9-round breathing meditation or 9-round breathing technique? And Rinpoche said, no, this is a totally different meditation. When you do the 9-round breathing technique, you don't need to visualize that the breath is in your entire body, that it starts in your head and then pervades your entire body. No, you just count the breath the way you described it before.
마치 다 빈자 군주제디 다 가서 그래 공주왕 공주왕 다디베 가서 그래 수수라베 가dwi이나 디 당진 다 당진치 당진베 다 뉴어나시 당진치스라 당진 하장이 첼리게오지 아니 시유로 제긴지 임바당 아니 양쇼진의 구조를 카테마 도바 진리고 딘데 카 구조의 카테토에 매워지 구조기 가dwi이나 당진야 비 첼리게오지 딘데 제버이나 간데 제고레세지 다 디인사를 저 딘데 진사를 레와
Here the question apparent is about the relationship a person has with their parents. So on one hand, this person says, my parents are very controlling. on one hand, they have this difficulty that their parents are very controlling. On the other hand, they're not able to separate from them.
내당 민자오래 다 내당 지랑이 내당 세부
What
세장지
to
내
do?
하고요 말에 지랑이 단다 러버나신 파마당 빈빈자 지중5年 长年기 당진策略给我去约面控制狂5年以内5年kuzu 당진策略给我去以约当面的야면的지랑이 세 나로了kuzu 5年기 가서 당진策略给我去도 상치랑이 삼보 장이나 5年기 지约呢 那的年最차장에 세부 하고요 말어其实马古地讲了다소 그래. 다 린자당의 체본주대 배신 연구를 상도. 다 계시 구조들의 이미 원당들이다. 계시 문에 전에기다. 당진 체력이어 지유봐. 양 구조다. 카제 토에면 딘데진 임바이나. 다디 디상당요 상도. 수수기 수비강라. 수수의卷선들이 내주 가르가르도 수수의 다지치치 구조기 체력 개ው 수수의 당진 제고에 가르린도 수수강 수수의 당진 체력 군주기 수수의 당진 체력 개ው 제고에 수수기 제당의 통도민도 수수의 상지다. 디네 군주기 당진 제당의 간대지도 딜레지 상다. 说쇼니의 상지다. 뇌당부들.
So the question is also now in the chat. So here I repeat it. So Rinpoche translated into Tibetan, but here it's in English. So if my parents, brothers, and sisters are control freaks and we can't really stay away from them because they're relatives, what should we do? And Rinpoche's response was, well, it just depends on the person. It depends on the circumstances. So we need to analyze what is the situation really like. Does it in any way benefit you? Is the control, well, what is their motivation? Do you have a sense of why they're doing what they're doing? And also, can it be beneficial in some way? Is there a way in which them trying to control you is also beneficial? I mean, they're trying to show you how to act and so forth, or to show you, to guide you, or why, also to reflect on why does it bother you, in what way, to reflect on your own reaction. Why does it bother you that they're being kind of control freaks, being trying to control you? So in that way, it's important to reflect, really, to reflect on the situation. What is really happening? In what way is it good? In what way is it negative, and so forth? So to be basically honest about it, to be self-reflective about it.
다 다 파마니기 남이 나로라 수수지부 강라 당진 최대 개ው 지고르베 단단디 나로라兄弟姐妹兄弟妹妹다妹妹呀远多가서 빈자 부모야远多다 파마니기姐妹对我这些是姐妹다 아자당 그 진부의 진무 구조에는 구조라 당진 체력 개ው 지도도 구조를 맞이 수술을 제는 가르래 디지 상지당说第三级的它让数据自身上的告诉我的问题数据的年当卡里面第三级当差别积了这些数据阶段级的土地呢第判决当下呢刚才是像库住的卡这的没多卡在你这嘛土地讲了工作的典故我工作的典别切的数据解决数据解决进决当然的故东能有吧的东能人吧的그 돈은 유시 창발이 간이스는 수처럼 로션 재미주니 쓰여지 말이 처럼기 전유배 저 재미주니 송 신마로 처럼기 내가 재미주니 쓰여지 말어 처럼 류제제 미주니 쓰여지 말어 처럼 류제 야부제는 구수 류제제디 제주의지 아니 로션 야부 재미주니 쓰여지 말자니 쓰임 다 처럼 로션이 야부 제주도 류제니 제주도 아니 칼라니 삼추스 자니 러시 유지마 칼라 삼추스 칸데스라니 저 디인디 된다 개치오디 제추유나 된다 개추중 디수강라 당진 제버이나 디 라소 스치니 파 라소 슈샤나 지나주 숨바 나신의 제인 스치 파 슈샤나 아니 지제나 디다지 가소리 지제나 딘데 용시 근데
So here Rinpoche says, well, it actually says in the question also that it's not just the parents, but it's also brothers and sisters. So it seems to be more than just the parents. But anyway, well, whether it's your older sister or an older brother or no matter what it is, well, let's reflect on it. I mean, if they criticize us, is it really that bad? No, if they try to control us, how bad is it really? To, as Rinpoche said earlier, to kind of reflect the situation, reflect on the situation. What is it that you're not able to do because of what they're telling you, in which way? I mean, they're trying to control you. So what is it that they don't allow you to do, or what is it in terms of what are they trying to control you? And of course, since you have to depend on them, since there's this, you don't want to be separated from them, well then to see to check. So wait, sorry. So then to check, what is it really that they're controlling me about? Like, is it something negative? Are they telling me do not study? Are they telling me you're not allowed to, you shouldn't be studying, or you shouldn't be working, or you're not allowed to exercise, or you're not allowed to eat? I mean, they're certainly not saying that. I mean, the things that are important, such as studying and working, exercising, eating, and so forth, it's very unlikely that they try to control that. So again, it's probably in a positive sense that they want you to do things that they consider to be beneficial. And in that way, it's important to understand, are they actually trying to control you in a way in which they don't allow you to eat or something? I mean, that's impossible. Therefore, to first check, what is it really they're saying? Is it beneficial? If I do what they're telling me to do, does it actually benefit me? And then if it doesn't benefit you, if it's not in any way relevant, they'll just say, okay, okay, okay. And then at some point they'll probably just stop and you change the topic. So in that way, therefore, since we do have to depend on them, so we don't want to be separated from them, we need to work in a skillful way. We need to go about it in a skillful way. Check what is going on to be realistic, and otherwise just agree without allowing ourselves to be controlled.
姐妹吧，恰给面对，明显大概开始諗呢，我就拉索停住諗啦，那別的讓我沒把影片停的恰給面對，停着切把影片樣，
他看你拉苏是那个去这你去在西康贝囊了地狱嘛咯，苏修路人都得开始姐姐嘛了呗。
So the Chinese translator said, well, doesn't that mean I'm totally being controlled by them? Like if I always say yes, okay, okay. And Rinpoche says, well, you just say from them, you just say okay, okay, but you're not always with them. And when you're on your own, you do whatever you want. So you basically just say okay, okay, but that doesn't mean you actually do exactly what they tell you. And when you're not around them, you can still do what you like to do.
단다 당진 지기도 세디 당진 관다 당진 체를 개어 지기도 세디 가리강의 지기나 더 디양 세부 수고로.
you see.
So here saying being a control freak, or as Rinpoche puts it, to try to control us in an extreme way, we really need to recognize, what does that mean? In what way does that manifest? What does that mean to try to control us in an extreme way? What does that actually entail? So it's important to understand that.
那实际上第上丁丁的上路途呢，他讲的说是卡住车里给当真结为呢，叔叔的什么的，或者除了当真结的叔叔的生的修行铁轨给要嘛的，什么的都是的，怕的连家当的的，连家当的看着结果都特开不起去呢，或就当卡住唱不起去呢，都是连家个特些新的卡里都，但等的忙不解决上个都，但第了说吧是吧？他顶特些以后嘞，上路略当的特些你个上个都第几节，他的我的了， 敌人多，学会这个是我们先用一个皮肤，这那是也不着，也不你用不起，但你呢，只要洗不洗洗就对了，第二下，去了咪边对下音不音的嘞，他去了咪边对下是过来，但俺南北音是一叔叔，南北了咪，俺南北音比，就南边学了，对下新下去呀，叔叔给再那么了咪边对下去，但对下音啥不急了，这个要嘛，但对下个女嘛都，叔叔的偏不急，他们的了女嘛都偏不急，那要嘛的，但第过的上年对下个过的。但俺说新不出来的，经常么土是做的，对下土的是卡上虚了，但是我没有挣钱，我上年定这些，忙我提过了家业。
So anyway, with regard to this control, like being extremely controlled by our relatives, well, we don't need to allow ourselves to be influenced by that. It doesn't mean we have to necessarily do what they tell us, but we should be skillful in our reaction to that. So, at times to kind of be accommodating when it comes to everything they're saying to us. So it just depends on the time and on the circumstances to still be skillful, to not hurt their feelings and so forth, but to remain relaxed at the same time. And again, we don't need to do everything that they tell us to do. And then the next question is, Rinpoche mentioned greed yesterday. If it is greed for the Dharma and attachment to the Guru, is it good or should it be eliminated? So Rinpoche, when he repeated the question, he talked mainly about attachment. So having attachment for the Dharma, having attachment for the Guru. Well, Rinpoche says that's not something negative. It is still attachment. So attachment is harmful. Therefore, it's something we need to look out for, even if it's directed at the Dharma, etc. And therefore, Rinpoche said, well, actually, as Rinpoche said earlier, he wants to talk about attachment more tomorrow, talk about its harmful aspects and so forth tomorrow, and all the problems that it gives rise to, which is why this will be answered more extensively tomorrow. But it's basically, as mentioned earlier, so as it is attachment, even if it's directed at the Dharma or the Guru, it is negative. It's something that harms us.
That the would the Gushi Dunyan the true of Gushi Dunyan the true of it, that the Ringasu South in the Joshira Chagamidonia deep das Peju Shavan, Sanjay Gushi Dunyan the true in.
And then there's one question, I can't find it right now, but it's apparently the question whether the four bodies, the four kayas of a Buddha, part of the topic here, but the answer is yes. The four kayas of a Buddha, theirs attain simultaneously. So a Buddha attains the Sambhoga kaya and the Nirmana kaya, that is the enjoyment body and the emanation body at the same time.
We breathe in first.
Rinpoche says he doesn't understand the question. There's a question, the breathing method mentioned in the last class to visualize the air. So this has been answered, Rinpoche says, about the breathing in and breathing out.
那是佛国人安良阿古松，但卷堂节叔叔的卷热是了用的讲了，你上节中定的米堂节上节了高切图要嘛的，是的讲了，米堂节上节了高切嘛图不的，上节的卷热为是些年，这我的了一下，但的讲了上节了，卷要的白色，这我了多，但上节中定的个。생진 단지 상제로 코랑기 가와 제투야기 뉴버디 요르베스나 딘데기 뉴버치에도 바보지 요르다 생진 코랑기 무이네 파가야기 디 스난디 메송스다
sim,
생진 코랑 디 상제로 파 가부차 투야기 생진 코랑기 무이네 디 디진 종국어라 가서 그래 진순의 진 종국어라 딘 종국어 말 상제기 코란수 가부 제 토야기 코란 가부 차야기 가부 차 토야기 상제 코란라 맞았으니 뒤차선 요이들 맞을래 뒤요 말이 맞을게 생기 간라 되자시다 나제 차도 미시버 몽버 띵인진 다 가사 띵인진 마스다 띵인진이 메디슈 뒤로 나이 고바 다 참아 나조 생기 간라 지마 두자 참아 야 강디 왔다 야 강네 비 문이 상学 낭신 차디 거다 띵자 나주기 쿠츠 미 가부츠 가부 제토야기 수수기 수부 간라 창고야기 수수 생 간라 창고야기 디 시적이 자진디 창고 말이 딘데기 제버지 요래다.
Now this question is, well, if other people if other people don't like us, if other people don't like us, if that's our own fault, does that mean that the Buddha has faults? Because not everyone likes the Buddha. So in other words, the Buddha would also have the fault that not everyone likes the Buddha. Is that his fault? And in response to that, Rinpoche said, well, the Buddha actually has the ability for everyone to like him. From the Buddha's side, there's everything there to like the Buddha because there are no faults. But it's because of sentient beings. It's them lacking the merit or lacking whatever other qualities they need to really perceive the greatness of the Buddha and therefore to like him. So there's nothing missing from the side of the Buddha. There's something missing from sentient beings. So us sentient beings, we have so many afflictions. We have attachment, we have ignorance, we have arrogance, we have jealousy, we have concentration. And then Rinpoche said, oh, no, not concentration. That's a positive thing. Actually, distraction. So we have all these negative aspects, aversion, etc. So our mind is like a dirty toilet. Our mind is like a dirty toilet with all that dirt in it. So therefore, we are unable to like the Buddha, but from the side of the Buddha, there's nothing missing. So that if our faults were gone, we couldn't help it, but like the Buddha, so considering the Buddha to be positive. So from the side of the Buddha, everything is there. It's lacking. We are lacking because of our faults, because of all our afflictions. We don't have enough. We don't have all the causes and conditions that are necessary to really appreciate the Buddha and therefore like the Buddha.
신제 탕지 가부 차야기 상제 코랑기 강다 창고야기 진 상모 창대요 그랬다. 다 신진기 문이 진만 상모도 상제기 문이 신제 탕지 가부 차야기 진디 조차 버렸어. 마수기 생강다 신제 창모 가부 유행기 진 창모 조차에 파샤 신제 창모 롱랑고야기 신제 창모 가슬라 심벌 로고야기 창모 디가 냥려다.
Therefore, the Buddha, from the Buddha's side, he has all the conditions are there to like the Buddha. There's nothing about the Buddha that is not likable. However, well, since we're missing something, therefore since sentient beings are missing something, not everyone likes the Buddha. But for us as a sentient being, not only do other sentient beings lack whatever is necessary to like us, but there's so much we are missing. I mean, sentient beings are disgusted by us. Well, if they see our afflictions and so forth, there's a good reason for them disliking us and being disgusted by our own negative behavior. So there's no surprise, basically. So in our case, we're lacking whatever's necessary to be liked by others. To be completely liked by others.
因常而生嗔的情况，是否就无法升起真正的利他心？不管被批评或批评别人的常而生嗔的情况，是否就无法升起真正的？어디 가르쳐 버리다. 미신다기 디스고르비 미신다기 준주 제외인들이 양민의 수수기 미신다라 파 준주 여러批评别人 시디 상교에서 말이야. 벽에는 야부지 보면도 간들 수준주 제외인들이 파준주 제외를 때네 쿤두랑베 거수 아니 상바 가서 그래. 군소를 미비 아니 편배 상바디 자원이 지도요 말이스. 지도요 말이베스. 디스가 말이베. 저딩 구춘.
你英吉托你
시디.
出九亚人，
Whether being criticized or criticizing others and becoming angry due to greed, is it impossible?
真正是디주제디 니지 요왕기 판조 동국으로 베스 디스게나. 아니나.
哦，
디저디 세부지 차마송.
So the question is not clear. I think in English it's also difficult. Maybe she is not sure whether being criticized or criticizing others and becoming angry due to greed, is it impossible to develop a true altruistic mind? So she says he doesn't understand this question. Then the second, it is impossible for everyone to like me, and I cannot like everyone at the moment. Do I need to cultivate my inability to like everyone into liking everyone so that I can truly regard all lives or all living beings as motherly beings and develop a heart of gratitude?
다
So
디디로
do I
미신다 상마 수술을 가보용 두고 말이스. 수술이나야 미 상마라 아니 가보 제퇴디 제퇴요 말이스. 디인바이나 미신다라 가서 그러다 샹베 센스라고 그러게 가보요베 센디. 다 지에 센디 아니 디제다 제투 말베스. 루 장지진이 유를 지투 말베스. 아니 신진 단지 수수기 말다와다 아니 말다 지진에 진진기 루디 간데스기 우레스 딘다부지 딘다부지 세월베
都是但那然탑시에 제치에 sem진 탐제 라 가보 제차베 제라 시내 sem진 탐제 마인바 기두시에 시내 게두기래 sem진 탐제 마인베 두시에 게차네 아니 시내 진소기
진진기를 진소기로
So the question is basically, do I have to like all sentient beings to generate love and compassion for them?
이 루디 기타 신진 탄제 지를 메버로 신진 탄제를 미베 샹베 루당 아니 지 루디 줄을 지투를 루종들 진이 지투를 이나 신진 탄제 수수로 추가보 용 토에세디 요 말에 신진이 매번 나서 바로 신진이 매번 나서 배 장내 대부 인디가 신진 탄제 수수로 추가보 제세디 아니 다 하나 용면도 비슷이 뒤쪽 단대 뒤쪽 거 내리지라 아니 아니나 파 수수위의 신진 탄제를 파 가부치 가부치 제kin지 용토마토 세디 수수위로 장토마토지라래 이거래 얘네야 마시기로 디줄을 지세디 디레 마시기로 줄을 지와라 내가 신진 탄제라 샹벨로당 신진 탄제라 가요로 디줄을 지고르스나 디 니바 가서 고랭 니바스키 근데게 아유 예지 말해 간들 신진 탄제 수수기 아마 임바디 수수디 신진 신 신진 신 수도 수인바 있는데 디네 신디 아마레 부지와 나신 근데 지유에나레 매너레 간들 신진 탄제 수수기 아마레세디 시디 하장기 뉴버침부레 다기 라바 나신 스르 띵지 아마 차고 왔다 신디 아마 레전 파바로 그래서 근데 인디 아마 세디 수수를 가진 치슈기 미지는 문센치 거라나 소난주 그래서 디차니다 아마 아미나니 아마 아미나니 배 초도 주어디 차고래 딘데지레스
It is. Sorry, I was my microphone was off. Anyway, so the question, can all sentient beings like me? Well, at this point, it's impossible that all sentient beings like us. Why? Because it's also due to their obstructions, obscurations, and so forth that other sentient beings cannot all like us. So that makes perfectly sense. But do I need to cultivate do I need to like everyone before I can truly see all sentient beings as my mother? And in response to that, Rinpoche said, well, it's not necessary that you first like all sentient beings and then generate the mind that recognizes that all sentient beings are our mother. It's not necessary. That kind of sequence is not that in that order. It's not necessary to generate this mind of understanding that all sentient beings have been my mothers. That doesn't necessarily need to be preceded by the mind that likes all sentient beings. But we need to understand that generating the mind that sees all sentient beings as our mothers is extremely helpful, for the same reason that Rinpoche gave earlier, that if we think of all sentient beings as all of them together as our mother, so not just the mother of this lifetime, but as our mother in all lifetimes and at all times, that is so beneficial, because we have a sense of their kindness, we have a sense of what they've done to us, so we really understand all the benefits that we gained, all the benefits we had because of sentient beings, and then based off that we can really generate that feeling of closeness. Therefore, that meditation of generating understanding that all sentient beings have been our mothers, and also understanding their kindness is so precious.
emotion 情绪了，你不典当给过了，但别拼图情绪是了过呗，我让了拼图情绪的，当的第二了，几人不起狼人情绪难路了，其他狼人吃上去第一难你讲，发现主给难路了，但发现主给过去，他不的第难路了，来当不吧，那已经别发现，告诉随便发现季节，第二专注发现些，但第二你，他你不都路过去，的错误，中国人的地方了。18년 송디 상딩기 봐도 다 싫어디다 내가 말로는 파신 당분가 디다 차상지 양내양도 로버 양내양도 로버이나 다 띵띵 루종들 지야라 수수기 단다 emotion 情绪가수 녀모비 루디도 당전 지야라 핀도 수수의 핀도지 용버디 다 자자자 띵키니 다디 라우토르디 야불로나 디르다 세다디 로나스 디 강라 다 정보인那边呢南这流那边南路了牛毛气为什么的提出这些送多地怕牛毛怕都为什么的几为什么的都为什么送有的提出人浪的过年主地讲了还来个少不有的少不有的什么
So the question is, I've learned a lot of simple and effective ways to deal with some negative emotions after listening to your lectures. Do you have any book recommendations that can help me to learn when you're not giving lectures? Now, in response to this, Rinpoche said, well, a text Rinpoche can recommend is the great treatise of the stages of the path to enlightenment, or the Great Lamrim by Lama Tsongkhapa, and in particular the section on the 6 perfections, or the 6 paramitas. So when they're set forth, especially for a beginner, talking about, for instance, patience, about diligence, about also concentration. Well, wisdom you can leave out for the time being, but basically it's the first 5 paramitas, the first 5 perfections that you should read about. Rinpoche finds the Great Lamrim, or the Great Treatise of the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, finds that very beneficial. And in that way, you will be able to train your mind. You will be able to understand that the afflictive minds are harmful. You understand which ones are beneficial, and so forth. And another text, Rinpoche says he would recommend you is the 2nd chapter of the Pramanavartika, because in there it talks about how the afflictions, how the deluded, afflicted minds are generated. And not just that, also how they're overcome. So how afflictions are generated in our mind and how we can overcome them, but using logic. So based on logic, therefore, the explanation in the second chapter of the Pramanavartika is helpful, in particular with regard to, so the afflictions.
那只要记忆连接，只要现在就是生理知道呢，它的下音，那只要记
So
忆连接的，就我了只要的
Rinpoche
地
will
了
give
下，
one more answer.
我说昂扎的，属于对恰这边西藏这边开始这事情的这些，开始工作的事，昂扎的对恰，对恰样嘛的害怕，
奇怪是
昂扎，
害怕，害怕是能昂胀的，昂胀不紧张。
昂扎，罗松，害怕是呢，西南界的，西南界的，对恰样嘛的，西南样嘛的，那以那样，西南的对恰就忘记，用过的，对恰了第年，你西南的用过的是。
So the question here
需
is
要断除嘛？西南界的干过了，西南没个水准的下去了。
So should we eliminate fear? And is fear a type of attachment or is it a type of aversion? Now Rinpoche's response was, well, fear is neither attachment nor aversion, but fear arises as a result of attachment. Because we have attachment, fear arises. And so it's important to overcome fear. It's important to overcome it. So it's important to reduce it, to overcome it, since it's based on attachment. So anyway, the other questions Rinpoche says he will answer tomorrow. This was the last question for today. So thank you to everyone. Rinpoche saying he's thanking everyone.
我们就念回向吧，回向文有吗？大家可以开始念。